Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the September 16th meeting of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. This meeting is being held virtually via Zoom video conference. Please be patient. We'll do our best to be efficient and allow everyone to participate. This meeting is also being broadcast and streamed online by FCTV in real time. As this meeting is being recorded by Zoom and broadcast by FCTV, please be aware of what you say, how you say it, and what can be seen in your background. The chair recognizes the attendance of staff members, Jen, Kevin, and our recording secretary, Susan. Recognize the attendance of all commissioners except for Maury. There's an asterisk there. For the record, the appointed alternates for tonight will be Peter and Mark. To the commissioners for commenting, I will call on each of you at the appropriate time. Please refrain from speaking over each other. And I'll remind you all votes need to be done by roll call. So when I call your name, please state your name and your vote. And it's redundant, but even if you've made the motion in a second, I'm still going to call for your vote. To our public participants, there will be an opportunity for public comment for each hearing. If you'd like to comment on a particular hearing, you may submit any comments or questions via the chat function once that hearing has been opened. At the appropriate time, I will call for public comment and any submissions will be read into the record. The link and further instructions are posted on the agenda. Now, about that asterisk, I have to announce that our esteemed colleague, Russ Robbins, has resigned as a member of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. Russ will be the new Grand Master of the Freemasons. So I'd like to thank Russ for his service on this commission and wish him well in his new endeavor. So with that in mind, we will be having an election shortly. Anybody that's interested in, well, any of the positions, but particularly the vice chair, now's the time to start thinking about it. We'll put it on the agenda fairly soon, right, Jen?
Yeah, I can put it on next week.
Also, we want to look at the schedule for the next few months. I would say up to including Christmas. We might as well do New Year's up to that point. So think about what days are appropriate.
We do have October 14th off, Jamie, and I'll give you a call tomorrow to talk about the schedule because FCTV will be covering a housing summit, I believe. Is that how you say it?
Yep. So we'll cover that maybe next week as well. So if there's anything you guys want to see or not see for dates, please let us know. Lastly, I've been reminded that we need to enforce voting for orders of conditions need to be, my word, voting members only. That is full members and who any alternate that has been called up. So as per usual, you'll be able to comment, question, and vote on closing a hearing because for the alternates, you may be called up for that vote. So hopefully that's clear. I think that's all I have, so we're going to move on. We need to vote the minutes of September 2nd.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
So I've read the minutes and find them in order except for one minor correction on page 9. Under the voting of under Mark and Cynthia Albers, they wanted to extend the order for another year. And it says Miss Lincoln, the applicant requested a continuance until the 25th of next year. It should be an extension.
Okay.
Minor change, but.
Yeah, that's okay. We want them correct.
Other than that, I find them in order and move to have them accepted with that correction.
I'll second. Gladfelter.
Okay, we have a motion to accept. Anybody else have anything? Pat, you're muted.
No sound, Pat.
There, sorry about that. On page 4, bottom of the page, It's a comment by me, and I just, quick modification. If the commission is predisposed to closing the hearing, we could give specific instructions to staff for review of a revised plan. The cantilever portion of the house confuses me, and then the remainder. I've typed it up for Susan if she would like that.
Yeah, if you would send that in, that'd make things more efficient.
Okay.
You send it to me, Pat, it'd be great.
Okay, I will, Susan.
Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to accept the minutes as corrected, for lack of a better word. I'm going to take the vote. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark Gurney.
Mark, can you hear us?
Mark,
He's muted.
I don't think he can hear us.
no. Mark, if you can hear me, can you give me a thumbs up?
Okay.
Thank you. Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
Thank you. It is unanimous. Minutes are accepted as corrected. Next up is a request for a continuance under a notice of intent. Francis M. Keegan, 42 Deer Run Lane, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to rebuild existing steps, to extend a stone wall, to conduct invasive species management, to replace invasive species with beach grass, and to install mitigation plantings. Jen or Kevin?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until September 23rd.
So move.
Patton, second.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question on this?
Yep.
Jen,
Go ahead.
are we really likely to hear it on the 23rd?
Okay.
This is the third time it's been, I mean, we haven't opened it yet.
Wait 1 second. Was it the 23rd that was getting really? Those won't be bad. No, the 23rd would be okay.
Well, are they trying to resolve something with you?
Yes, we received a plan today, Betsy.
Oh, so we'll have a new plan
Yeah.
for next week.
Yeah,
All right.
yes, we've been waiting for the plan.
Okay, that was my question. I mean, that's led to my question. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to continue this hearing until 9:23. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark? Yeah, I still, thank you.
We can't hear you, Mark.
We're gonna need to,
Get a thumbs up.
gonna wanna make some comments. All right, Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
thank you. Steve,
Patton, aye.
it is unanimous. This hearing is continued until 9:23. Next
Mr.
up are
Chairman.
requests.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, I hate to interrupt, but we did receive a request for a continuance late today. It's for the ANRAD, the amended ORAD, and I do know there's someone in the attendees list that I believe is here for that project, so I don't want them to sit through the whole hearing. So if you read that, I can let you know when they requested a continuance.
Okay. All right. With that in mind, we have a request for a continuance under a notice of intent. And it is, bear with me,
It's actually a continuance under the request to amend an order of resource area delineation. It's the last agenda item.
okay?
660
So this,
Falmouth Highway.
Can I speak 5 words, please?
Yes.
So under this request is a continuance is Wings Pond LLC, 63 North Falmouth Highway, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to amend the ORAD and confirm that the vegetated wetland is an isolated freshwater wetland, not a bordering freshwater wetland, as classified in the original ORAD. To confirm the boundary of the isolated land subject to flooding under state regulations and the Falmouth Wetlands regulations, and to confirm the mean high water line of the certified vernal pool, and that the pool is protected under the state regulations and Falmouth wetland regulations.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until September 30th.
Bird, so moved.
Gladfelter, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to continue this until 9:30. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark. Thank you. Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
Thank you. It is unanimous that hearing will be, that request to amend will be continued until 9:30. Anything else, Jen?
No, sorry about that, Mr. Chairman. I just hope the person that's in the attendees list heard that.
No, I think that's good. I mean, it's good we don't make them wait for nothing. All right, with that in mind, we have requests for determination of applicability. First up is Joel Lubin, 36 Patty Road, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to remove a brick patio and to excavate for the base of a new patio and to install a new flagstone and pea stone patio. Kevin?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Staff recommends a -2 under the state and a -3 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so moved.
Patton, second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Mark? Thank you. Pat?
Harris, aye.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
Jen, is there anything in the public comments?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. It is unanimous. Next up, Samuel Lacy and Kathleen Wallace, 31 Emerson Road, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct a 10 by 16 addition. Kevin? You're
Yes,
muted.
Mr. Chairman. Staff recommends a -2 under the state and bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so moved.
O'Brien, second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Mark? You're muted. Thank you. Pat?
Harris, aye.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
Any comments, Jen?
Yes, I believe the applicant is wondering what that means. That actually means, Ms. Wallace and Mr. Lacy, that you can go forward with your project. So the negative in this instance actually means you can go forward as proposed. You're welcome,
No means yes.
as Courtney likes to say. We're all set, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Bear with me 1 second. Okay, next up, Frank J. and Carla S. Lionette, trustees, 63 Little Island Road, West Falmouth, Mass. for permission to upgrade to a Title V sewage disposal system with no increase in design flow. Kevin,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, staff recommends a -2 under the state and a -3 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so moved.
O'Brien, second.
thank you. We have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy,
Gladfelder, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Mark, no. Thumbs up.
all right. Thank you. Pat,
Thomas is working with him, Jamie.
thank you.
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve,
Patton, aye.
thank you. Any comments, Jen, on this one?
No comments on the chat. Mark, if you haven't seen, Thomas has sent you a few chats to try to help you. So he wasn't sure if you saw those.
All right. Next up, Jenny G. Ahern, 28 Green Harbor Road, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to upgrade to a Title V sewage disposal system with no increase in design flow. Kevin,
Mr. Chairman, staff recommends a -2 under the state and a -3 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so moved.
O'Brien, second.
all right. I sense a pattern here. All right, Betsy,
It's a good pattern. Gladfelder, aye.
yes, it is. Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Gurney, aye.
all right, thank you. Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve,
Patton, aye.
all right. Any comments, Jen?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. It is unanimous. Next up, Howard and Christine Houseman's 88 Mill Road, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to remove an existing deck, steps, and wall, to expand an existing covered porch, and to construct and maintain an addition, covered entry, patio, and 2 wood landings. Kevin,
Mr. Chairman, staff recommends a -2 under the state and bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so moved.
O'Brien, second.
excellent. We have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy,
Gladfelder, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Gurney, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve,
Patton, aye.
thank you. Any public comment, Jen?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. It is unanimous.
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
Point-
Mr. Wall.
Point of order. Are we supposed to solicit public comment before the vote or after the vote?
Well, Peter, it would be before the vote. So if you wanted to give the opportunity, the public an opportunity to comment on an RDA, you would probably want to do that before you take the vote.
Okay,
Should we be asking for public comment on RDAs?
It's a public meeting. It's not technically a public hearing, so you're not required under any regulation to solicit comments, but the board, I don't see any, there's no, it's okay to ask, Mr. Chairman. Let's put it that way. No harm in asking.
Yeah, it's just where I don't have asked for comments, individual commissioner comments. That's why I haven't been asking for the public comment before the vote.
Yep, that's fine.
No, you got a good point. I just so you know why I went backwards. I'm dyslexic, so it works. All right. Next up, Mayflower Wind Energy LLC, 0 Surf Drive, parcel ID number 47-07 as 000A000 and 0 Grand Avenue, parcel ID 46B 09000Q000, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to conduct limited localized geotechnical boring investigations for the purpose of supporting the planning and design of a proposed horizontal directional drilling landing of a submarine export cable in Falmouth.
Mr. Chairman, before you ask for the staff's recommendation, I do believe the attorney for the project had his hand raised. And I'm just going to promote him up as a panelist real quick. This he has any, or if the board has any questions. So Mr. Pizzoni, I just promoted you up as a panelist for this hearing as a project proponent.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Yeah, no, I just, we have a presentation if you'd like to see it. We know that this is, one of the first of many meetings that we will be before you. But if you're going to grant us a negative determination, and I'm looking at your agenda, it looks pretty long. It's up to you, and I'll leave it up to you as to what you want to do.
I'm happy with staff's recommendation.
Sir, you are getting go on, Kevin Newton.
All right. Staff recommends a -2 under the state and a -3 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Heard, so move. And I have one,
O'Brien, second.
question.
Go ahead.
What is the exact location of this? I mean, I realize it's lot 0, but that, where exactly is this?
Courtney, one of them is in the Surf Drive parking area. The other is in the Falmouth Heights parking area, Falmouth Heights beach parking area and the Surf Drive beach parking areas.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right. I'm going to proceed with the vote then. We have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy,
Gladfelder, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Gurney, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. Sir, your presentation was just too compelling for us. It is
Thank you.
unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation.
We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank
Have a
you,
good
sir.
night. Next up, Barry S. and Deborah Joy Lipset, 14 Viewcrest Drive, West Falmouth, Mass. For permission to remove the deck on the west side of the house and to construct a new deck and screened porch. Kevin,
Mr. Chairman, staff recommends a -2 under the state and a -3 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Heard, so move.
Patton, second.
all right. Kevin was asleep at the wheel there. All
I was.
right, we have a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy,
I'm disappointed in Kevin. But Steve held up his
Steve,
end.
up to the plate.
Yeah, Steve stepped up to the plate. Gladfelder, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin, if you can see it in yourself to respond.
Contrite
I'm
O'Brien,
kidding.
yeah, aye.
Mark,
Gurney, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve,
Patton, aye.
and again, this is backwards, but any public comments?
No, Mr. Chairman.
I'll work on that. All right, next up, our request for hearing under a notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authorities of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision, of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. First up, David Ferrazza, 55 Racing Beach Avenue, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct an addition, to remove an existing deck, to remove 2 front entries, and to construct a new deck and covered porch on the front of the home with all associated clearing, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Mr. Chairman, I've promoted Mike Borselli up to present for the applicant. Mike, is your client with us tonight?
Nope, not on this
Okay.
one, Jen.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, Michael Borselli, Engineering. I represent the applicant. Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I'll share my screen.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Bear with me.
I like that screen.
Nice and cool that day. Hopefully you've seen a site plan now.
Yes, sir.
All right, so I represent the applicant, David Ferrazza, the property owner at 55 Racing Beach Avenue. The property has wetland resources adjacent to it, including a bordering vegetated wetland that meanders around the southern and eastern side. There's a coastal dune on the western side adjacent to Racing Beach, and then adjacent to the Racing Beach Avenue is Racing Beach itself. There's a single family dwelling on the property, typical yard and lawn areas, attached garage and deck. The property is also located in a flood zone that's a velocity zone VE elevation 18. So the renovation has been designed to specifically meet your regulations found at FWR 10.38 and also the local town building code, building department requirements and the building code. We met on site with staff early on before we filed our application. And I think we have a plan that is approvable, and I'm going to go through the proposed elements of the plan with you now. This is a older home, and because of the fact that it's in a velocity zone, and in an effort not to trigger the substantial improvement requirement that would require it to be elevated on pilings, they're proposing a very limited small addition, which is shown in this brown tan area in this corner. It's a slab foundation with a small additional living space, and it measures 176 square feet. In addition to that, there's a porch proposed on the front of the house, eliminating this front entryway where I'm pointing with my mouse, and a couple of raised planters. So this will be an open porch with a roof, and that measures 355 square feet. In an effort to offset the increases in impervious surfaces, we're proposing to eliminate the existing deck that's on the rear of the house that serves no real purpose. Where you want to be on a deck on this property is on the western side facing the ocean. So we're going to eliminate this 420 square foot deck and replace it with a 30 square foot just steps to get into the house. So this has been designed so there's no net increase in impervious surfaces. It's been designed such that the addition of the habitable space addition to the building is under 200 square feet. This porch is 355 and it's smaller than this 420 square foot deck. So this is a sort of a strategy and a design to meet the specific sections of the regs. I think it was a plan that was made sense to Jen when we were on site. So that pretty much sums up the project. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mike. If you would, screen sharing.
Yep.
You, Jen or Kevin?
Yes, Mike, hang on. I need to move things around on my screen. Oh, there we go. Mike, real quick, the back area, that's just gonna be lawn?
Yes.
Okay. And those,
Other than this little step.
okay, the little landing and step. And so the existing deck has 3 steps until you get up on the deck, and it looks like you only have 2 steps on that little landing. Is that going to be enough? Does that meet code or anything like that? Or
Well,
is
the third step is really this landing. So there's enough risers to get from the house.
There is?
Yes. So
Okay.
that,
I was just curious because
Yep.
we were looking at it. So
I was not clear what the question was on the staff report, but yes.
no, that's what it was, and it came from me because I was just looking at the pictures and remember the you know, the old the deck.
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure it was the right size for compliance time. That's why. That's where I was getting at. So.
Okay.
And then Alyssa wanted to know if the 2 shrubs next to on the hedgerow next to the deck are going to be removed as well.
There was no plan for that.
Okay, so they're going to just stay there, right there in the middle of the.
I hadn't really considered it. What is your preference that they be removed?
Well, they're going to be removed. You know, maybe replaced somewhere. I forget what they are actually. It's just a question, so if the board can weigh in on that. But
I'd have to ask the applicant what his
Yeah.
intentions are.
Okay. And I think it was pretty straightforward. So that was all of my questions. Mr. Newton?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have any questions on this project. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Mike, I want to ask clarification on those steps, and it's really just curiosity. In the picture, there's a slider. When I was on, I don't recall if there was a slider and an entry door. Do you know if there's both?
This entry is
I'm talking about
on the slider.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
The intention is the slider will remain, and that's going to be the entry into the
Okay.
house at the slider door.
Just curious. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. I'm going to start alphabetically. Betsy. You're muted.
I'm coming. Mike,
Yes.
thanks for, this was a well thought out proposal, and thanks for, thinking what the issues might be and dealing with them. And as far as that bush, I don't know how much that would be, 20 square feet or whatever, however many square feet that hedge would be. I would just make a finding that there was a hedge, and if they don't want it in the middle of their lawn, that much vegetation be added to the vegetation that's out and back there.
Understood.
That's all.
Courtney? Thank you. Courtney?
Well said, Betsy, no questions.
Thank you. Kevin?
No questions at this time, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Mark?
I have no questions.
Thank you. Pat?
No questions, thanks.
Thank you.
Peter?
I agree with Betsy. No further questions.
Thank you. Steve?
No questions.
Okay. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function?
No, Mr. Chairman.
I'd like to make a motion to close this hearing and take it under advisement.
I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to close the hearing and take it under advisement. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Mark?
Gurney, aye.
Pat?
Harris, aye.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. This hearing is closed. Thank you, Mr. Boselli.
Thank you. See you a little later.
Thank you, Mike. Thomas, if you could move Mike back down to the attendees list. All I have is remove, and I'm afraid that'll remove him entirely. Thank you, Thomas.
Next up, James P. and Jean F. Borden, 124 Sitters Pond Road, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to construct and maintain a 4x8 fixed timber pier with a 4x12 ramp, 8x12 T float, and pipe piles in Sitters Pond, to rebuild a set of stone steps and to install lighting for the existing path and proposed pier. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have promoted, there he is, Tim Santos up to present for the applicant. Hi, Tim.
How are you? Good evening.
Hi, Tim. You're up.
For the record, Tim Santos from Holmes and McGrath representing the applicant. I'm going to share my screen if everyone is good with that.
Please.
Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, again, Tim Santos from Holmes and McGrath representing the applicant. The property is located at 124 Sitters Pond Road in Falmouth. The resource Sitters Pond itself, the Inland Bank associated with Sitters Pond, Coastal Bank, and land subject coastal with this project as it was before the board, I think in the spring or early summer, and the board issued an order of conditions to demolish the existing home and approve the construction of a new home. Mitigation plan, Coastal Bank duration project. If you've been to the site, the previous home is gone and the new foundation is in, so they've started construction. So we're here tonight looking for approval to construct a fixed pier, ramp, and float. We originally came in for the order for the house. There was an old ramp and float out here that was unauthorized that has since been removed. And we're back tonight looking for approval to construct a fixed pier, ramp, and float, as well as to redo some stone steps in the bank in order to get down there with a handrail. This project is very similar to that one.
Tim, you keep kind of blanking out, so if you could go back a little bit.
I'm sorry. Where do you need me to go back to? How far?
Just like 30 seconds, 20 seconds ago.
This
Okay.
project is similar to ...
Project similar to 132 Sitters Pond Road. Before we go, did I lose you?
No, we hear you.
Okay, 132 Sitters Care project that the board approved. So right now, there was a few staff comments that we received earlier today, and we emailed them back to Alyssa and Jen. So at this time, if the board has any questions, I'd be more than happy to address them. And I can stop sharing.
Thank you, Tim. Jen or Kevin, do you want to start?
1 second, Mr. Chairman. We did have a question on the size of the float that had been answered. The lighting, it says minimal safety lighting is proposed along one side of the proposed steps and on the 4x8 fixed portion, similar to lighting recently approved at the adjacent dock. And they went on to explain the construction methodology. And I don't have any questions regarding that. If the board would like me to read their response to the construction methodology, I'd be happy to, or Tim can explain it.
Yeah, because you'll know it'll come up.
Yeah. Tim, you want to explain that?
Yeah, we gave a brief description of construction methodology. Staff asked a question of what our construction methodology would be. The plan is to do the invasive species removal on the bank, and then they would construct the pier after that point. So at that point, that path would be a little wider, but all of the material for the fixed pier would be brought down by hand, and then the fixed pier would be constructed. The ramp and the float would be constructed off-site, and that would be brought to the site and then brought down to the fixed pier portion and installed in the water.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Newton?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask about if any machinery would be required, but you just addressed that, so thank you.
All right. We'll start with comments with Pat.
Sorry about that. I have no questions at this time.
Thank you. Peter?
Yes, I have some questions. I know that docks don't normally require mitigation. However, the steps leading to the dock on the land look like, to me, maybe 16 inches wide. And the drawing for the proposed new steps are 3 feet wide. Jen, what is the position normally taken if you are expanding the steps? It's going to be feeding the dock, but it's not part of the dock really.
No, it isn't. You're correct, Peter. The board has in the past, you know, if there's been like, if the property has been sparse of vegetation, I'm thinking the one on Beckles a few months ago, the board required a little bit of vegetation buffer on the top. On the Beckles Road one, it really is the board's preference. If you feel that this is an expanded, I know what you're saying, because those little steps are kind of embedded in the bank now. But if the board feels that you wanted additional mitigation for the steps, and the steps are wood, they're wooden steps?
Currently, there's stone steps, and we're planning on putting 3 foot wide kind of stone granite block steps into the bank to get down there. I mean, typically in the past on projects, we've always done a 3 or 4 foot wide path out to the water. And to the best of my knowledge, we've never really done mitigation for that. And I would just remind the board that the project that was before them back this spring/summer, quite a bit of mitigation went into that. And there's also a coastal bank restoration project as well. So I don't really feel that this lot is sparse on vegetation once this is all planted in the end. But I do understand your concerns, Mr. Walsh.
No further questions.
Thank you.
Good
Steve?
question, Peter.
Thank you. The only question I have is when the original plans for the house was submitted, the dock wasn't considered?
The dock was considered at that time, and due to timing to get everything together, the owner wanted to proceed in a 2-phase process because they wanted to move forward with obtaining their building permit at the time. So it was discussed, and we did talk with staff and say that we would remove what was there that was unauthorized, and we would be coming back in with another application at some point later in the summer.
Thanks, that makes sense.
Thank you. Betsy.
That was a good question that Peter had, but usually we allow a 3 to 4 foot path to access the water. And I just see that this is doing what we normally do for that. And it is, you know, once it's all done, I mean, it's when you go out and you see all those invasives, it's like a horror show. But once they're dealt with and lots of plants are put in, lots of native plants are put in, and they start growing, it'll be a nice vegetated buffer. So I don't actually have any questions.
Courtney.
Is the plan to leave the float and the ramp in during the winter, or is it going to be removed?
No, typically they would remove it and store it in an upland location.
Store it where, I'm sorry?
In an upland location.
So how do they get it from, because that's wider than 3 feet, are they going to have to drag it over land, or are they going to remove it and have it brought around? Is somebody going to take it up? Follow what I'm saying?
I understand exactly what you're saying. I mean, the ramp itself could easily be brought up the slope, up the steps. And I think with the proper manpower, you could take the float up as well. You know, if they need to move it around to bring it out somewhere else, that's what they're going to have to do.
Pretty heavy. I mean, I'm concerned about disturbing the vegetation once it gets put in. It would be nice to have a little something that we could write into an order of conditions. So maybe you could submit a methodology
for winter.
Yeah, just explaining how you
storage.
do it so we know we're not going to damage the vegetation that you put in.
Yep, that's not an issue.
Other than that, I have no questions. A good project.
Thank you. Kevin.
No questions at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Mark.
I have no questions.
Thank you. Jen, are there any public comments or questions?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
So assuming that what Courtney's asked for can be put in as a condition?
Yeah, that's what I'm at.
Yeah, then I'll make.
And I think if you could submit something, you know, by the middle of the week before we have to consider it next time.
That's not a problem. I'll try to get it to you by Friday at the latest.
Okay.
And the next day.
Motion, close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Word, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to close this hearing. Anybody have anything else you want to add?
I have a question, Mr. Chair. This plan with regard to the float, I thought Courtney was indicating he wanted it to be submitted so that we could look at it. If that's the case, we should be continuing the hearing.
Well, I think if he can put a description in there that meets the concerns that I have, that he can get it in and out without damaging the vegetation, I'm fine with that.
He just needs a methodology.
Yeah, and then we can just put it into the order.
Okay, so
I understand your exact concerns, and I can get it to you in the next day or so.
thank you.
Pat, to be clear, he's asking for a methodology for removal, so I don't think that would necessarily be a modification to the plan.
Yeah, I was just thinking something approved by staff, and that's fine versus the commission.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll take a look at it if the board wants us to. That's fine.
Okay.
Well, it can be a condition that they have to have a satisfactory methodology. And if Tim doesn't give you one in 2 days, I'm sure, Jen, that you'll tell him that this is not satisfactory and he has to come up with a new plan that is satisfactory.
Correct.
All right. We have a motion and a second to close this hearing and take it under advisement. Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Gurney, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. The hearing is closed. Thank you, Mr. Santos.
Thank you for your time. Good seeing everybody. Have a great weekend too.
Have a good
Bye,
weekend,
Tim.
Tim.
Thank you.
All right, next up, Joan Spolaris, 78 Squibnocket Drive, East Falmouth, Mass, for permission to seek after-the-fact approval for driveway and front walk modifications, construction of a retaining wall, modifications to the south residential egress, and mitigation plantings. And Jen, before you start, Pat would like to issue a disclosure. Pat? You're muted. Pat, you're muted.
Sorry about the delay. I want to disclose to the record that I have a professional relationship with Attorney Wall, who is representing the applicant here. He represents me in a separate legal matter unrelated to the board's jurisdiction. So in accordance with the conflict of interest law, I have filed a disclosure with our appointing authority as well as the town clerk. And I am speaking to the record now to say that, to dispel any appearance of conflict, that I could act impartially in this matter.
Excellent. All right, Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I've promoted Arlene Wilson and I just promoted Brian Wall up as panelists to present the project. And for all of you, and Arlene, I did call your office and let them know that I sent something late. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Wilson, you're up.
Thank you. Arlene Wilson, AM Wilson Associates, representing Joan Spolaris, the owner of this property. This is a site of 11,782 square feet, a lot created in 1971. It has 100 feet of frontage on a man-made canal, which is an extension of Eel Pond, a salt pond. The resource areas are land under the water, an intertidal beach, which is land subject to tidal action. There's a compound coastal bank, the lower section of which has been found to be eroding. The upper section is only a vertical buffer.
Arlene, may I interrupt you, please?
Sure.
Are you sharing a plan? Do you intend to share a plan?
Yes. You want me to put it up now?
Yeah, please.
Sure. Bear with me. I've never done this before.
All right.
So we've got.
You're not sharing yet.
Try it again.
It looked like you had it there for a minute. We see your computer.
Oh. That probably isn't helpful.
Well, if the plan's on the computer, you can find it.
Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. So we've got from the right side of the screen to the left side, land underwater, the intertidal beach or land subject to tidal action, a compound coastal bank. The lower section is eroding. The upper section is simply land, simply a vertical buffer, and lands subject to coastal storm flowage. In addition to that, under the town bylaw, there are your buffers from those resource areas. The project involves a change in the driveway footprint from what was originally permitted. The driveway that shows on this plan is about 2 feet narrower and about 1.5 feet shorter than the driveway that was authorized. There's a relocation of the retaining wall from the end of the driveway about 10 feet along the house foundation toward the water. It's still landward of the top of the coastal bank. There are changes in the south house access. I think you've all seen the pictures the last time we were here. What was apparently intended to be a wooden platform supported by sonotubes is now a stone slab that rests on grade in the fill between the end of the driveway and the retaining wall. This project, this design eliminated the need for fill and grading on the south side of the house, which was on the coastal bank, and it has replaced sections of lawn both to the south and the north of the house with areas of native shrub plantings, predominantly Virginia rose. The front walk has been reorganized. I don't think in all of our discussions on this project, nobody seems to have had any questions about the front walk. There's also been some overplanting of what would have been the bark mulch strip to the east of the house, between the house and the row of blueberry shrubs. That is the permanent demarcation for the work limit on this site. That overplanting is with native wildflowers, predominantly pollinator type attractants. And anybody who's been out there in the last few weeks, those have grown gangbusters. I'm not quite sure how because I can't grow any of my perennials at my house in this drought this year, but those seem to be doing fine. We're also proposing the addition of some more woody shrub mitigation to the south of the driveway. In terms of project impacts, the impervious surface in this plan versus the plan that was approved by the commission under your file 254277 is about 186 square feet. That's 186 square feet less impervious surface. The NOI goes into some significant detail on how we believe the project meets your performance standards. I'm just going to give you a nutshell version. You've heard this project so many times before. I don't want to drag this out too much. But with the exception of 16 square feet near the south entry, which is, let's see if I can find it for you, right in here. That area is 16 square feet of land subject to coastal storm flowage. The only planting, or excuse me, other than that, only planting is requested in actual resource areas. No construction, no fill, no grading. The installation of mitigation of native plants, which are predominantly woody shrubs, are the only thing that's proposed under this plan on the coastal bank. Nothing in the bank section which is eroding, nothing in the coastal beach, nothing in land underwater. Driveway and retainage are all in your buffer to a non-eroding coastal bank. Such areas in your regulations require that work not compromise the bank's stability or cause erosion on the bank. The retaining wall, which we believe to be structurally sound and for which we have provided you a plan stamped by a Mass registered structural engineer to prove that the wall is properly designed, will ensure that the stability of the driveway and the drainage flows from the driveway don't run over the coastal bank where they might cause erosion. Furthermore, because of the way this has been designed, there is going to be no foot traffic over the coastal bank in that area. There are no stairs that run through that wall, and it's too high to step over the edge. So this design actually provides better stability and ensures better erosion protection than the plan which was approved, which allowed for fill in the area where that wall is and a 3-to-1 slope, which could have been used for pedestrian access to the backyard. The wall also provides a stable base for the side entry, which would otherwise have been reasonably difficult to maintain. It would have shaded that section of the bank. You couldn't have gotten anything to grow underneath it. And so the potential for there being sort of chronic low-level erosion underneath that access would have been relatively high. The mitigation for this project, again, the reduction of 186 square feet of hardscape in the coastal bank buffer would have allowed for a reduction of mitigation of about 372 square feet. Instead, we're proposing the addition of 420 square feet of woody native plantings in the area between the retaining wall and the driveway and the area to the south of the driveway. The perennial beds that have been established there cover almost 575 square feet. Those areas can't be counted as mitigation under your bylaw, but the bylaw does label them as improvement plantings because they replace lawn or mulch beds. And they're deemed under your bylaw as beneficial. So this is an addition of almost 995 square feet of non-lawn woody shrubs and perennial plantings, being provided in the acknowledgement that the hardscape modifications here, even though they reduce the area of hardscape, were done without asking your permission first. I've said before that I know this is a difficult project for you. You never wanted to have a house here. You probably feel like you were forced into it by the court. And I know you feel that the applicant has taken advantage of you by violating your conditions, making changes to the plan without your permission, not once, but multiple times. And so I'm asking you to step back and look at the impacts of what was built in comparison to what was authorized. And I know that's very difficult to do under these conditions. But if you do, my professional opinion is that what we're asking to maintain is actually better for the environment and a closer match to your regulations than what was allowed under SE 254277. This project has already paid a price in terms of what's allowed at the site and in comparison to what's built in the rest of the neighborhood. They can have no pier. They can have no retaining wall. They can, no bulkhead. They can have no deck. They have no backyard lawn or sitting area. They don't even have a walkway to get them to the water. They have a nitrogen removing septic system, which is unusual for the neighborhood. And even though the project is one that you would prefer not to have, it's many, many times better than anything else in the neighborhood. Should they have asked you first? Absolutely, they should. But I believe that in the end, you've wound up with something better than you might have had otherwise. I had just a few minutes as I got back into my office to review the staff notes here. And I haven't had a real chance to compare the sections of the bylaw that Jennifer cites at the end. But I believe that the first citation, which is 1037D1A, is about eroding sections of the coastal bank. And as I mentioned, we're not doing any work in that eroding coastal bank section. I would hope that we'll have a little extra time to respond to the other comments. Jennifer also mentioned that the town buffer zones are not shown on that plan. I apologize for that. We've given you so much paper on this project over the last few months. And I did not include the old existing, the unbuilt condition for this lot, which had the buffer zones marked on it. If you want us to add buffer zones to the construction site plan, they've never been on there in the past. We're happy to do it. I didn't have a chance to talk to Mr. Borselli before this hearing. I know that his office, like all the engineering offices in the area, is pretty backed up right now. If you want us to make those plan changes, I would like to have a month to do it, I think. I probably should stop sharing the screen. There.
Thank you. Jen, do you want to begin, or Kevin?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Sent you staff report late. Most of it is just basically a history, a very brief, condensed history of this project and some of the conditions that went on this project. This project really should be viewed as if the wall and the granite steps aren't there. It's really, you know, it would be really a very bad or very dangerous road for this board to go down if you allow structures such as these to be built without permits and then approve them after the fact. It would set an incredibly dangerous precedent with this board. That said, one of the corrections I'd like to make from Arlene's presentation is there wasn't any proposed fill as stated in the original order of conditions. If you look at the original plan, which I can pull up, all the grading was landward of the top of that coastal bank. So if the applicant is saying they have not filled the coastal bank, which there is a tremendous amount of fill that was brought on that site for that wall, and that's in the buffer zone to the coastal bank. There was some grading that was proposed from the edge of the driveway down, but it stopped at the top of the coastal bank. And I can bring up that original plan if the board would like me to clarify. That said, I think pretty much everything on this project has already been said. This board voted a few weeks ago to issue an enforcement order that was sent out today, requiring the removal of the wall. So staff doesn't have much to say beyond that, other than if the board feels it's necessary, buffer zones and topography should be on the plan before you. My only other question, Arlene, and I was looking for something when you said that. You said something about replacing lawn, replacing a section of lawn.
The permit plans previously approved had lawn both to the north and to the south of the house above that, the working line. So on the sides, in the area where the retaining wall and its fill are, and then running in a box essentially down to a line extending off the back foundation wall.
One second, Mr. Chairman. That area was supposed to be stabilized with native vegetation, according to the original order of conditions. The 6-foot amended settlement order, special condition number 12, the 6-foot grade change on the plan, and any other steep grade changes must be stabilized with native vegetation and approved by the conservation staff. So that wasn't technically going to be lawn. It was going to be native vegetation. I think that's all the staff really has to say, Mr. Chairman. Kevin Newton, anything to add? Where is Kevin? Oh, there he is.
No, I have nothing additional to add to the staff.
Okay. Okay. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to commissioners' comments, and just remind you, let's stick with the application in front of us.
Chairman, at some point, I have just a brief statement to make. I don't know if it'd be appropriate now or after comments are made.
Nope, that's fine. Go ahead, Mr. Wall.
Thank you. For the record, Brian Wall. I also represent the applicant together with Arlene Wilson. I just wanted to make a comment about the staff report's reference to the settlement agreement. And I know that Pat Harris is on the board, and so she can correct me if I get any of this wrong. And this is very brief, but I want to focus the commission's attention on what the settlement agreement was about regarding no expansion. And I want to focus in on, obviously, the area that's at issue. So some of the commissioners will remember, or the ones that weren't on the board at the time, can see it in the staff report. But the Spolarises originally wanted to build a 3-bedroom home on the property. They applied for that and it was denied. They then applied for a 2-bedroom home, which was permitted.
Brian, you're breaking up a bit.
Sorry, I don't know why I'm on a landline here, but in any event, the houses, we ended up in court on appeal, and there was a hearing that's referred to in the staff report where the judge looked at the 2 different projects and said maybe the 2 parties should try to resolve their differences. And so there were some settlement negotiations, and both of the houses that were proposed had a deck on the south side. And the purpose of the deck on the south side was twofold. One was it was to give the Spolarises some outdoor space, because as Arlene said, this is a very steeply sloping lot. And because of the conditions that were imposed by the commission, there was no area outside for enjoyment. And the other very important reason for the deck was that it served as a transition. Again, the lot slopes almost from the moment you step off the road onto it. And so the cars were going to park in the driveway, and the deck was going to be the transition. As the sloping lot sloped away, the deck was flat and provided a means to get into the property. So when we were trying to negotiate a settlement, The commission was very focused on protecting the bank and limiting the size of the house. And so may I share my screen, Mr. Chairman, to show the board a letter that was written? I think it will help shed some light on this.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Let me see how I do this. If I can do it. Here we go. Can the board see the letter?
Yes.
So I wrote Pat, who's on the board now, a letter saying, and we don't need to read the whole letter, but after the hearing with the court, we made this following offer, and the offer said a 3-bedroom dwelling, a house footprint, and here's the key language, but with no deck. This is where the no deck comes from. And the letter goes on, it just pretty much concludes after that part. And if I'm going to show the settlement agreement that was referred to in the staff report. So then the terms of the settlement agreement were agreed to in this form, and the amended order was what was part of it. And again, I'm just going to focus on one part. It's the special condition that's being discussed right now. You can get to it. This one right here. So at no time can the footprint of the residence, including without limit, appendages such as decks, entryways, etc., be increased. So the context, I can stop sharing my screen now.
Okay.
The context of that condition was that the Spolarises had to build whatever they wanted to build within that footprint. And so if they wanted a deck, they had to make room within that footprint. If they wanted it all to be house, then they could have no deck. So what happened was, since the plan that was before the commission had a deck on it, Mr. Borselli had to prepare a new plan to reflect the terms of the settlement, and he took the deck off the plan. But the problem that then created was, how do you get into the house? Because the land slopes sharply. You know, it's almost at grade at the front of the house, and it's a walkout basement by the time you get 24 feet further in. So he drew the landing, and he drew a retaining wall because the driveway had to be flat. And then, as everyone knows, below that area was supposed to be naturally vegetated. So the commission, the Spolarises certainly did not build what they were supposed to build. But what I think Arlene's point is, and our contention to the board is this wall is not entirely inconsistent with the settlement agreement, because there was to be a retaining wall at the end of the driveway. They admittedly moved it a little further, it's higher, and there's a greater area of flatness. But as Arlene has pointed out, the numbers all work out such that what was built is less than what was approved on the plan. And again, the reason why I wanted to focus on this is the settlement agreement and that special condition that says at no time can the footprint of the residence, including without limit, appendages such as decks, entryways, be increased. That was the footprint. It wasn't what we're talking about right now. The footprint is exactly as was the settlement provided. And the wall is a little bit bigger than the one that was approved, but this is not a wholesale departure from the plan. And I think if we can keep that into context, look at the numbers that Arlene has put forth to you, and kind of put emotion aside. A lot has happened since this case started. On a funny note, the Spolarises first met me when the day after my youngest child was born, and she's 13 now, and Spolaris, unfortunately, is passed away. So I think this is the end of this project. I would ask that the commission, review it without emotion and just look at the facts. And I would suggest that what's there is not inconsistent with the settlement agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wall. Jen?
I have nothing, Mr. Chairman,
All right.
other than the fact that, well, I've already said it. The board will, set a very dangerous precedent. They don't have, the Spolarises didn't build a deck, but they did build a retaining wall, backfill it, and have a nice little patio space right on the side of the house where that deck was. They added a tremendous amount of fill into the buffer zone, the A buffer zone to that top of the coastal bank. And this simply was done without permission and with no permits. And work still continues to be done without a permit because there's no valid permit on the property right now. And they're still working and planting out there.
All right. Kevin, do you have anything to add? Mr. Newton?
No, Mr. Chairman, I don't. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to go with commission comments. We'll start with Steve.
Chairman, I don't know what to add to this. I'd like to hear other comments from the commissioners. This is going on. I wasn't here for the original house construction, but the last several meetings have been just confusing. So I pass.
All right. Betsy.
Thanks, Jamie. I'm a little disappointed with, I know the quality of work that Ms. Wilson and Attorney Wall are capable of producing. And they've given us an NOI that has most of the resource areas are not on the buffer. None of the resource area buffers are on. And I would like to see a plan showing what was permitted and then what you're asking for in this NOI. I mean, that's normally when somebody wants to add something to their house, we see what was already there and then we see what was added. And second is, I have a question. Have you requested a building permit for the wall?
No, we have not.
Well, then you're in procedural. You know, you're required when you put in an NOI to apply for any permits that are required. The other thing I want to point out, if you look at the wall, that the engineered drawing of the wall, the surface of the wall is 16 feet long and 1 foot wide. But if you look at the actual construction of that wall, it has a 5-foot base. So the impervious surface of that wall is actually not 16 square feet. It's 16 times 5 square feet. And as Jen said, it's in the A zone, actually to both coastal banks. And it's also entirely within the A zone, partly in the A, partly in the B to the coastal banks. Although, as I say, you didn't give us the buffers, but it's also entirely within the A zone of land under ocean. So if you were actually applying for an NOI, you would have to apply for variances for where this project did not meet the regulations. And that's all I have, Jamie.
Thank you. Courtney.
Like Betsy and I guess Brian, we have sort of the only ones other than Jen who've been involved with this thing since day one. And Arlene's correct. There's been a lot of button pushing on part of the applicant over the years as far as the commission is concerned. I recall that settlement agreement and I reread Jen's aid memoir with the description of what was agreed to in the settlement dispute, settlement agreement, which dealt with no additions to the footprint. And I recall that when the house footprint, which was, I believe, I've forgotten, I saw it somewhere in the letter that you put up, Brian, was 32 by 40 something. I can't remember what it was, but I remember
26 by 45.
Yeah, and I remember that the discussion was about the deck. And the commission took the position, I believe, and Jen, you can correct me, that if they wanted a deck, they could do it within that footprint. Am I correct in that recollection?
That's correct, Courtney.
Yes.
Correct.
So this, and yes, there was a retaining wall drawn, and it was built in the position, if I recall the plan showing, with the end of the driveway. The plan did not show that semicircular structure,
That's correct.
and that was outside of that footprint. And that's why we issued a cease and desist, or whatever the word is, I'm sorry, an enforcement order asking you to remove that. And I think that's the position that we have to take. And as far as I'm concerned, you know, this commission acted in good faith. In fact, we acted in more than good faith. If I go back 13 years, I'm 80 now, I was 67, so I was a kid. And I gotta tell you, we agreed against our better judgment, and it's come back to kick us in the face, you know, to allow the project to exist in the first place. And so then our buttons got pressed over and over again. And now you come back to us and you want to expand it again. And is enough enough? And I am not about to vote to approve an NOI like this. We've approved a enforcement order, and the enforcement order, in my view, should stand, and that thing should come off. That wall should go away. The planting should be put back. The fill that was not allowed anyway should be removed. I'm certainly understand Arlene's point about vegetation not growing very well in certain areas in where that semicircular structure is. And I could see that we could allow, say, a gravel bed directly under a 4x4 platform or whatever it is that would allow access out that door. You can put it down at footing level and put, you know, a bed of crushed stone retained by pressure treated timbers or something.
Let's focus on what's in front of us, please.
But other than that, there's plenty of shade tolerant plants that could go in that area. And so as far as I'm concerned, I'm not going to approve this.
Are you good?
I'm done.
Mr. O'Brien?
Well, I take a certain amount of solace in not being involved from the very beginning with this project. But I would say that from my review, I couldn't support some plan that seems to be at variance with a settlement and an enforcement order that we've already issued. Thank you.
Okay. Mark?
I have no comments.
Okay. Pat?
I think it's important for the commission to look at the merits of what is before us tonight, which is a notice of intent to obtain approval for something, notwithstanding the fact that it's there. We have to, as Jen has directed, look at it as if that, you know, when retaining wall were not there, and whether or not it could be constructed under our regulations. And from what Jen has said at this point, it appears as if it's in a zone A, no disturbance to the bank, and it would require a variance, at least one. And the board should look at this request in that context. I have nothing else at this time.
All right. Peter?
No questions or comments at this time.
Okay. Steve, did you want to come back after hearing everybody else's comments?
No, thank you for the opportunity. The point was that there was, no apparent change has occurred in my definition of things and in the weeks we've been discussing this.
Okay. All right. Jen, do we have any public chat questions, comments?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Amy?
Mr. Wall or Ms. Wilson, would you like to add anything?
Just in response to something that Jennifer said, the area between the driveway and the retaining wall is not proposed to be a patio. In fact, on the plan that we shared earlier, the landscape plan that's in the notice of intent, it shows that area to be planted with woody shrubs.
Okay. All right. So at any rate, Jen, we need a, actually, I'm going to ask, do we need a revised plan with the topography and the buffer zones represented on the plan?
That is up to the board. Usually have a plan with buffer zones and topography.
Jamie, this can't be reviewed without that.
Yep.
Okay. And I think we also would like to have what was approved and what's proposed shown on one plan.
Yes.
Okay. So Arlene, that's what we're looking for. What do you think?
We're happy to do that. As I said, I haven't talked with Mr. Borselli. I suspect he will need some time. So if we could have an extension for 4 weeks or so, whatever your meeting closest to that would be.
Okay, so is that a formal request for continuance?
Jamie?
Hold on. Ms. Wilson, is that a formal request for continuance?
It is a formal request for continuance.
Thank you.
1 second, please, folks. I just found my calendar, my
Courtney?
thing. So Arlene, that brings us to Courtney. 1 moment, please.
Where does the enforcement order sit?
Jamie, wait, Courtney, wait.
All right.
Go on, Courtney.
Courtney, you had something you want to add?
Yeah, I asked my question.
We didn't hear you.
I'm sorry. My question is, what is the, where is the enforcement order sit while this is going on?
It was
There's nothing
issued
to do with us.
today.
I'm sorry?
Courtney, it was issued.
It's what?
It was issued.
Okay. So,
Arlene, you said 4 weeks. That brings us to the 14th of October. We are not meeting that day. So would you prefer 3 weeks or 5 weeks?
Let's do 5 weeks.
5 weeks. Okay, so that would bring us to the 21st of October.
Hey, Betsy, did you have something you wanted to add?
I do. I want to add, in addition to the 2 things you said about plans, before they come in front of us again, they have to have requested a building permit. And they also, Brian's going to have to do some work on variances, because I can see at least 3 regulations that are not met by this proposal. I mean, maybe there are more, but it's hard to evaluate when not all the information has been given to us.
I hear
Okay.
your concerns, Betsy. I wrote some notes. I'll look at that. I would like to just simply say, I don't think this really changes anything, but it's burning in me. We had asked for an extension of the last order of conditions so that we could keep that open, that had all the variances, but because the COVID order changed its term, when Governor Baker ended the stay, it said that permit projects that were not in compliance could not be extended. So, you know, that's kind of put us in a procedural position that we didn't want to be in beyond our control. I know that doesn't change anything, but I wanted to say it.
Well, I just wanted to point out that both of you are very capable representatives and appear before us regularly. And it was a little bit of a disappointment to see this to see this plan and to see what was not in it that should have been in it.
right.
I have one other question, just a
Is
clarification.
it something new?
When we're asking for the plan that was approved, that's the plan that was approved under the settlement order, is that correct?
That's
What are you
correct.
talking about, Courtney?
I'm sorry?
Clarify what you mean, Courtney.
In other words, it was a plan that showed a footprint of whatever it is, 24, 32, or 45, or whatever it was.
Correct. So you're talking about,
Yeah.
you're talking about Betsy's
That
overlay?
And the location of the retaining wall, because that's the crux of the,
Correct.
of-
It will be the plan referenced in the settlement agreement, overlaid with what is currently on site. That can be one exhibit. I don't think it probably should be this, it could be the site plan, but it definitely should be an exhibit.
Yep.
All right. Arlene, are you clear on what we're looking for?
I think so. The board does understand that that settlement agreement plan was revised at least 2 times, I think predominantly relative to vegetative issues, but yeah, I would, if somebody tells me they want an overlay of this and the last plan, I would have used the plan that was authorized under 4277 instead of the earlier one. But if Courtney wants us to use the earlier one, we're happy to do that.
Whatever the approved plan was. And I would just say, if Mike needs clarification, is it fair to say, Jen, that he could call you and make sure that's clear?
Yes, give me 1 second. I can bring that, both those
I
plans.
would be happy to see the plan that was approved by the settlement agreement, and I would happy to see the plan, the amended plan. And then with the dates of both of those on there, I think would be very instructive.
Well,
Might
we don't
need to do
You know, I don't want any mistake on this now.
Hang on 1 second, Mr. Chairman. I can clarify for Courtney in about 2 seconds. Hang on, Courtney. I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
Again, I remember we were very specific on that commission about, you know, what they could do within the footprint. They could make it all deck if they wanted to. That was their call. But that was the limit of the structure. That and the retaining wall to hold up the deck.
So the plan that was.
I mean, driveway, I'm sorry.
The plan. The plan that was approved, Arlene, for 4277 actually is the same plan that was for 3446. There's one additional revision date on that plan. It's dated January 26th of 2016, and it's revised site plan to NAVD 88 datum and revised general notes. So the footprint of any of the structures did not change. It was just that it's the same plan revisions straight through to that April 30th of 2012 plan. That was the settlement plan. And then the additional revision to change when they changed the datums. And Mr. Borselli can explain that better than I can, but he's not here for this hearing. And then revised general notes. So the plan itself with the house and the driveway and everything doesn't appear to have changed between the two.
If we have any questions, I'll let you know.
Okay.
But that's
Just
good.
to let you know, that's the difference between the two. I just double checked since we were talking about it, just so it would clarify for Courtney and for you which plan to use.
I appreciate it. I have less.
I'm all set, Mr. Chairman. I apologize.
Jamie, may I ask one more
I have
question?
another question because
My turn, Courtney.
Who's running this meeting?
I'm asking you for permission to ask a question.
Go ahead.
So I just want to, this is just a statement, and obviously we've been talking about all these different plans and settlement plans. I just want to ensure that everything on this site, everything in the past on this site is in this record, is part of this record.
Yeah.
That's all.
All right. Courtney, is something new?
yeah, I think part of the issue really was when we approved this house footprint, we didn't have a actual construction plan. And so somewhere along the line, it was determined that there was necessary to have a second means of egress. If I recall the history correct. And that's why they needed to put this needed some kind of way of getting out the second means of egress to the driveway. So my question really is, since we didn't ask for construction drawings or incorporate them into the order at the time, was there any reason why they couldn't have put the second means of egress out the front door, out the front of the house at the other end, so it didn't create an issue?
Courtney, that's kind of irrelevant to this project, right?
Yeah, and that's out of purview anyway. That's in the building department. All right, so we have a request from the applicant for a continuance till 10/21. I'd entertain a motion.
So move.
I'll make the motion that the request of the applicant propose continuance until
October 20.
10/20/21.
Yeah, Gladfelter second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this hearing until October 21st. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Third, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Gurney, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
All right, it is unanimous. This hearing is continued until October 21st. Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Thank you, Mr. Wall.
Thank you all for your time. We'll see you in a couple of
Thank
weeks.
you, Arlene. Thank you, Brian.
you.
Just a quick question for the board. Is anybody else experiencing people kind of pausing or having fun audio?
I've seen a couple. I don't know if it's happened to me, but I've seen you and
Steve,
yeah.
But my computer's saying I have some kind of connection problem.
Yeah,
Yeah,
mine's
it could
saying
be
the same thing. It's the first time this has happened to me here. So I was just curious, guys. Thank you. Oh, I almost removed Thomas, trying to remove Brian. Whew.
So far, I haven't seen an issue. But. All right, next
just
up, our
weird,
continued.
Is Steve gone?
Can I go on?
Yes.
Next up are continued hearings under notice of intent. First up, Cameron Kodaka, 13 Fells Road, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to reconstruct an existing patio, construct elevated access stairs with a platform over the coastal bank, abandon an existing path, and reestablish native vegetation within that path, manage invasive plants, and install mitigation plantings.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have promoted Mike Borselli up as a panelist. Mike, am I promoting Teresa as up as well?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you.
Before you do that, Betsy, could you tell me what the quorum is?
I don't believe, I could tell you who listened to it the last time, but I don't think we opened it.
Okay.
Yes, I thought we did.
Well, I have not opened. First hearing not open, but
Oh, okay, sorry.
if we did, it was Courtney, Kevin, Betsy, Jamie, Steve, Peter, and Mark.
All right, slow down and give that to me again, please.
Courtney,
Yep.
Kevin, Betsy, Jamie, Steve, Peter, and Mark.
Thank you. All right, Jen.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we needed to continue this hearing because the project site is, or the project is located in priority habitat for, I believe, saltwater pennyworts. Am I correct, Teresa? Yes. I needed to have a natural heritage was requiring a survey. That survey has been done, but I don't believe they found anything. Teresa, do you send me that survey, right? 'Cause it wasn't included in the package.
I did, thanks. So Teresa Sprague was.
So
yes.
unfortunately, we still haven't received a response from Heritage unless you guys have.
That's correct. We have not yet received the anticipated no take from NHESP because no sand pond pennyworm was found within the project area.
Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to close this hearing until that documentation is in the record. But they can present, Mr. Chairman, the project and we can continue for Natural and Heritage's anticipated no-take letter. But who knows?
We're still going to need to wait for that.
Excuse me?
We'll still need to wait for that.
Yes.
Okay. However, we can address anything else and we can comment on it, correct?
Correct, because there are a few comments and things that the staff is going to need to have reestablished in the field in order to evaluate the project.
So Mike or Teresa, will you be?
Sure, I'll start off. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Mike Borselli, Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant along with Teresa Sprague. Yes, it's true that the letter from MISA is still outstanding, but the survey did not discover any of the rare and endangered plant in this area. So we are hopeful that we'll receive a no-take letter in the near future. This hearing had never been opened, as Betsy had indicated, because we discovered about the rare and endangered species and the need for the survey. But we had received feedback from staff and some initial comments. We made some adjustments and changes to the plan in response to that. So what I'd like to do, my primary function on the project was the access stairs to the pond. So I'm going to go through the general project and then turn it over to Teresa for specifics related to the invasives management and the patio and proposed mitigation planting. And with your permission, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to share the screen.
Please do.
I should be sharing a site plan with you now.
You are, thank you.
All right. So this property is located at 13 Fells Road. It has frontage on Oyster Pond. I'll zoom in on this a little bit. So Oyster Pond is on the right side of the plan, adjacent to the pond. So we have land under the ocean. Land under a water body. There's a edge of inland bank and a BVW fringe shown with this green line. This blue line represents flood boundary. And the flood boundary is FEMA VE 15 on the pond side and A non-special flood hazard zone X on the landward side. We've also shown on the plan in this black dashed line that kind of gets lost on the contours, the Falmouth designated Falmouth wetland regulation velocity zone, parallel and 25 feet from the FEMA V zone. This sloping landform is, of course, a coastal bank. There's a single family dwelling and the typical appurtenances, including a brick patio, a detached garage, some stepping stones around the house. There's a footpath down to the water that has a sharp turn at the end. And if any of you had been on the site, you realize this is very treacherous and really dangerous and eroding. More on that in a minute. There is some invasive plant material. So the project before you tonight has two main elements. There's the proposed reconfiguration of the patio. And there's a proposed new access to the pond via these elevated stairs. And then there's other elements such as the invasive management that Teresa can speak to. So the proposed access is before you to be changed because of the dangerousness and the severity of the slope and the erosion that is currently on this path. It's really difficult to gain access to the pond. So as an alternative to that, we're proposing to abandon that and restore it with native plantings and build a stairway down the coastal bank, as I show here. Pretty typical, you've seen them before. These are 4x4 posts to be hand dug. The lower sections are proposed to be removable. They're in small enough sections that they can be removed. There's a set of stairs that runs down to and just upland of the shoreline, so it's not within the waters of Oyster Pond. You will see there's a small platform, 8x8, which is intended to be kayak and canoe storage platform, so that the applicant and property owner can make access down the stairs and hand launch the kayaks and or canoes by standing on these steps, which are in the background of this platform. If I show you this plan over here, to clarify, in plan view, the platform itself is on the side of the stairway. So you make your way from the upland down some sections of stairs. So you're walking down the stairs and the platform is to your right and it's 8x8. So the platform and these lower sections of stairs are proposed to be removable if necessary due to an oncoming hurricane. Back to the profile view, again, there's that platform with the stairs in the background going by it on the side. So that work is all typical to what you've seen in the past, hand dug, pressure treated non-CCA wood materials on the top. They're looking into alternatives for these sections to be aluminum, but if they were wood, they're still can be built in a way that they can be removed and stored in the upland in the off season and or if there's a potential storm. There's a cross section showing what we're proposing with the through flow decking, 4 foot wide. The other elements of the project include the reconfiguration of the patio with a small low profile landscape wall along the edge. It's been designed very specifically not to go any closer to the top of the coastal bank than the existing patio, but in its current configuration, it's not really usable. So then Blue Flex Design came up with a design to change that and adjust the location of some previously proposed mitigation. They've also propose some supplemental mitigation planting so that we meet your standards for mitigation requirements. And I think that's a good place for me to turn it over to Teresa. And I will unshare my screen.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Mr. Chair, may I share my screen as well?
Thank you.
I'm gonna go here. Let's do this. Okay. Hopefully at this point you can see our mitigation, our proposed planting plan and mitigation plan. So just very quickly though, I'm going to flip to the existing conditions. You can see the photo in the upper right hand corner is the existing patio. There's a landing when you come out of the house, and then a small landing, small secondary landing area, and then the patio itself. So there are several steps down. Basically, in addition to that, and stepping stone pathway that Mike has already pointed out, the area is actually well vegetated, multiple canopy layers, except for the existing access path to the water. The path is, as Mike pointed out, steep and very dangerous to traverse. I don't have any pictures of that because frankly, you have to hold on to branches as you're working your way down to the path to get to the edge of the water. At the water's edge, there is a steep drop off that makes it very difficult to access the water safely. And what we're seeing is that that existing path is actually acting as a channel for stormwater runoff, and there is some accelerated rates of erosion currently in the path between the footpath and stormwater runoff. The vegetation on the coastal bank is degraded. There's clearly signs of disturbance, presence of non-native and invasive species, including English ivy, bittersweet, honeysuckle shrub, and vine honeysuckle, Japanese barberry, vinca, multiflora rose. What's interesting about this bank is that while the canopy, the understory and shrub layer is dominated by invasive vegetation, and there's more invasive vegetation than native vegetation. The native vegetation that's present is actually quite diverse, which is a little bit surprising considering the conditions. We've got American holly, American beech, oak, white pine, hickory, sassafras, inkberry holly, clethra, lowbush blueberry, winterberry holly, and arrowwood viburnum, all found within the no disturbance zone A and the coastal bank. There have been several small oaks and some other sapling-sized trees that have been pruned for views previously without the benefit of best management practice, kind of leaving them in a somewhat degraded state. We should point out that the Kodakas are fairly new owners of the property. As you know, we first submitted this application quite some time ago, but because of the nature of the rare plant species, we were not able to undertake the survey for that plant species until the end of July, beginning of August, which is why we've had to continue so far to this point. So with that, we're basically proposing to remove that existing patio and replace it with a new dry laid patio, as well as an area of lawn just to the north of that. So we're looking at a 151 square foot increase in total structure. This new proposed patio creates one landing with a step down, and then the rest of the patio is all at a single grade. So we eliminate all of the steps that were previously there, which gives the property owners an opportunity to put out a dining table with seating for 6 people and some lounge chairs on the fescue area that we're proposing in the northern portion of the property. None of the patio or the retaining wall, and it's not really a retaining wall, it's just a low landscape wall, which is basically proposed to keep all of the foot traffic in this area and prevent anybody even from potentially stumbling over the top of the coastal bank. None of that structure gets any closer to the top of the coastal bank than the existing patio that's currently there. In addition to that, so with that 151 square foot increase in structure, we're proposing 453 square feet of new native planting, which will be planted to stabilize and close off that existing pathway, as well as to the south. You can see the area of the dwelling. You can see the areas in this diamond-shaped hatch, which my cursor is sort of moving over. This is mitigation planting that was previously approved in a plan that was done by BSS Design, and I'm going to pull that up quickly, back in 2005 or 2006. And you can see those hatched areas on the plan. Those plantings were proposed in the foundation area of the house, which would, of course, today not be permissible under your current policy and regulations. We are proposing to relocate the previously approved mitigation plantings from these areas and to replant them to the north of the existing dwelling so that we create a more continuous vegetated buffer around the north of the property, through the east of the property, and then to the south of the property. Those other areas that were shown previously on the BSS plan from 2005, some of that area has been degraded. Some of those shrubs had been cut and removed. We're proposing to restore or regenerate that planting as necessary. So we're only proposing to remove and relocate the mitigation planting that was previously approved back in 2005, 2006, that's within the footprint of the patio. We're looking at approximately 6,000 square feet of invasive plant management on the coastal bank and restoration. I've pointed out the existing species. The area, I'm sorry, I feel like I'm all over the place with tonight's presentation. The area of the previously approved mitigation planting that's being relocated is 314 square feet. And so that's what's shown in this diamond hatch pattern and then being planted to the north. We are proposing a Vista corridor, a 25-foot wide. There's been a historical Vista corridor within this area. The same area has been managed, perhaps without the benefit of proper permitting. I'm not sure what was done previously. We're putting this on to have this on a plan of record. The restoration planting in this area has all been designed to not require any pruning in order to maintain this 25-foot wide Vista corridor per the Falmouth 10.1810B Vista corridor management regulations. So the goal is to put a Vista corridor, because one has been historically managed, on a plan of record. However, the understory planting will not require any pruning ongoing into the future in order to maintain the appropriate heights that are allowed under 10.1810B. We're proposing to plant 169 native shrubs and 5 trees between the mitigation and the restoration. Again, we're showing the restoration planting on the coastal bank in areas where invasive plant species will be removed, obviously preserving all of the native vegetation on the coastal bank that we pointed out, perhaps with some regenerative pruning as it's been overtopped by vines. But generally, the native planting that's remaining is in good health. So I think with that, we've got our plant schedule, our seed mix, and our invasive plant management areas. And I'm happy to answer any questions about the proposed mitigation, patio construction, and relocation of the previously proposed mitigation plantings.
Thank you, Teresa. Teresa, if you would, you could start. There you go. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Mike, do you want to add anything?
Nope, I'm happy to answer questions.
All right. Jen and or Kevin?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'll start. So you're removing mitigation plantings and moving that patio closer to the top of that coastal bank than the present primary structure, correct?
No. We're replacing the patio that already exists in that location, and we're not going any closer than the existing patio.
You're not going any closer than the existing patio. That's not what the regulations say. What about the area where you're removing that mitigation planting and putting more impervious surface in that area? That's moving closer than the present primary structure, correct?
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you keep making mention of the present primary structure, but,
That's what the regulations say.
well, we have an existing patio that we're just basically squaring up and changing from.
Enlarging. Yeah, but you're enlarging and you're removing mitigation plantings that were required for an old permit and relocating them further up next to the house. So the board has to be very careful when you look at these little patios, because there's always that encroachment. I get what you're saying, Mike, but the regulations state you can't move any closer than the present primary structure, not the patio. So the structure is considered the house.
Well, I'm not sure I read it that way, but
What?
I'm not sure I read it the same, but, I mean, we already
Well, the
have.
board can decide what they want to do.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, I that's the way the staff's saying it. I would be really I'm cautioning this board. This is one of those slippery slopes. You're gonna start to go down with squaring off these decks and moving them closer. Or, you know, enlarging it. I mean, this could be a huge patio on a different project, and Mr. Borselli could be making the argument, well, it's not moving any closer than the existing patio, and you let me do it on 13 Phils. So just be really careful. Lisa, the existing.
If I could just speak to that, could I speak to that? Because if we were a different project and we were making it bigger, I don't know if huge is the right word, but if we were reconfiguring a patio basically, and we made it somewhat bigger, we would be mandated to provide the mitigation planting to offset the increase. And I think that's what we're doing here.
The increase is moving closer to the top of the coastal bank, especially since we're installing this little landscape retaining wall. But anyway, the board can decide that. The mitigation planting. So if we go to Tom Bunker's plan, I have mitigation planting. I also have pictures of the property where the mitigation planting that they're allowing to remain next to the house it's part of it's gone. So, you know, I would caution this board to start allowing people to relocate required mitigation plantings for a past project. I do have some concerns with that, especially since we're moving it up and over by the side of the house. And Teresa, what are we moving over there? 314 square feet of plantings? And how many shrubs are you putting in that area?
I do not have an actual shrub count. I have an area, so it's 314 square feet. So we can certainly get an actual shrub count on for you. I do have some photographs I can share of what that looks like. It's mainly inkberry holly, and a big chunk of it is actually located directly against the foundation. So to the north of the northern portion where the addition had been previously proposed and approved, the mitigation plantings were put right up against the foundation in that area, which of course we recognize would not be permissible under today's regulations. So
no, but you're also removing like a section along the top of that bank.
Just a small, we are removing a small section along the top of the bank. I can give you a very quick measurement of that, a rough measurement of what that total area is. That's not part of the foundation planting. Let me just pull up. And while I'm doing that, I guess one thing that I'm a little bit unclear of, and what we have always, or what I understood to be the previous policy, was that no structure could go any closer to the resource area than the closest point of the existing structure. So that's what we're
present primary structure.
Mm-hmm. So that's approximately 100 square feet of vegetation that we're proposing to relocate.
100 square feet. What about the area
I can share that.
lawn patio is?
Yes, if I can share the screen again, I can show you the area that I just measured out.
Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Okay. Oops. Sorry. Can't fit everything on my screen at once. So if you see this area here that's highlighted in red, that's the area. So that totals about 100 square feet.
And what about the other area where you're moving it to make the grass patio?
So that, well, the total of that is 314 square feet. So since it's after 9 o'clock and my mental math is done, I'm gonna get out my calculator here. Hold on.
No, you have 314.
314 is total. And so what did I say, 160? So there's another 154 square feet that's within this area here, along the foundation, the existing foundation, and then on this side over here. And that's all.
Well, that side over there is what I'm talking about.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about this area that's being.
We're removing vegetation from the top of the bank and making it patio. We're removing mitigation plantings to make it patio.
Yes.
And then we're removing more mitigation to make.
So again, this is really
grass patio.
Super duper.
Which on the grass patio, the staff would caution the board that you should put something in the regulations. How much is that, Teresa?
85. 80,
Okay.
I'm sorry, 84 square feet. And that's again, it's just, that's a really rough measurement. I don't have my CAD program. Open.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
So, so staff's gonna have some concerns with that. Also, Mike, we weren't able to tell where the mitigation plantings are. It's not your fault. Somebody moved your stakes in the field.
Right.
Yeah, so we weren't able to tell where mitigation was on the
The south side.
Can I share my screen?
south side of the property, so we're gonna need those to be reestablished before we can comment on that. They were
Sure,
like,
if I could just comment on that to help you understand. And if I could share my screen briefly. again.
Sure.
Thanks. So I believe you're making reference to this area here.
We don't see a screen like.
Oh, I didn't press share. I guess I should do that. I think you're making reference to this area here, correct? There were stakes.
No, Mike, where your proposed mitigation is, where you have.
Yeah, this is proposed mitigation, this green. And the staff report says on the south side of the house.
That's it right there, yeah.
Some stakes were missing. In this area, there were stakes. Evidently, there are stakes missing here. I can't control, once I put a stake in the ground and drive away, I can't control what happens. But if you scale the drawing from the word of, from the green boundary to the corner of the house, I should have, I guess, put a 10-foot minimum right here. That was designed to be 10 feet. So I could put the stakes in the ground and you could measure with a tape measure, or you could see from the plan that it is, by scaling it, that it is 10 feet. So.
But see, Mike, when we have the stakes in the ground, it's and I know you can't control what happens when you drive away, but you put a stake in the ground and we're going to be able to go out there, and my newer staff is going to be able to kind of look up, make sure the mitigation plantings aren't underneath existing trees and everything else. So it's very telling in the field where the mitigation. I know we had a project a couple of weeks ago in which Mr. Gurney was concerned that the mitigation shown on the plan was not matching the mitigation area out in the field. Not one of your plans, Mike. So that's why it's important to have these projects, when the staff is going out there staking them. Again, you can't help it, but we are going to need those stakes reestablished so the staff can go out and look at that.
Is that the only place?
I know you guys are just.
I'd be happy to meet staff.
What was that?
Is that the only location where the
That's
stakes?
fine. We can meet out there. I mean,
I'm happy to
we
meet.
just need the stakes.
Sure. I mean, I
and
can.
also, is this area, are you removing previous mitigation, put that wall in, because if you compare BSS designs plan, and Mr. Chairman, I will share the screen now. So this is if the board sees that, this is the original plan. And Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but you have that part of the retaining wall. I don't even know what that is. It's not a little, that is the weirdest little piece. Right there is where that wall is going, Mike, or no? Or is it up a little bit off
I
that?
believe it's up a little bit. I think the details
Okay.
of that.
So in this area, that's where the staff would be concerned that that's existing mitigation that was supposed to be. Oop, I closed it. There we go. Stop
I think
sharing.
the one area that was described on the Blue Flex design plan is the only area, I know it's the only area where they shifted some previously proposed mitigation to another location within the buffer to the A zone. And they also removed some mitigation and relocated it it had been in a place that is right against the house, which you don't allow now, and relocated it in a place that you do allow. So we thought the adjustment of the mitigation was an improvement and better than what had been approved back earlier on that previous.
Well, the one against the foundation is, but removing the one along the buffer to the coastal bank is not. So
Well,
I'll meet you halfway on that one, Mike.
I'll let Teresa speak to
I'll meet
that.
you halfway on that one.
I'll let Teresa speak to that.
So the only thing that I can add to that, and this is obviously, is some of that area that was supposed to have been mitigation is actually not existing. And so
No, it's not.
Right, I know. So I recognize that. So what we're doing is we're reestablishing mitigation planting that should have been there and obviously was at some point there because the previous property owner received a certificate of compliance. And then at some point between the time the certificate of compliance was received and the Kodakas purchased the property, that vegetation went away. I don't know.
It was removed.
It was removed.
Wow.
Likely it was removed. So what we're doing is, so even though we're saying we're relocating the area, but those shrubs are not actually there right now. They're not
There's
actually.
a lot of there's quite a bit of the mitigation that's not there.
Exactly, but after having the opportunity when you shared the BSS plan from 2006 and we went and overlaid it with what's currently existing, we recognized that there was areas that where there had not been, and that's why we make a note in our plan that we're going to relocate. Pretty much the only thing that's still remaining are the foundation plantings, which are mainly inkberry holly on the north side. The other plantings are no longer there, but we are replanting and reestablishing that previously approved mitigation planting in a different area. So we're not actually digging up plants and moving them because they don't actually exist. We're actually replanting mitigation that had been previously existing and over the course of the past 11 years has disappeared. I mean, that's not in any way, shape, or form it's not oh, that's better now. It's just that we recognized when we got on the site after viewing the previous plan approved by BSS that some of those plantings that were supposed to be there are not there currently. And so we're saying we recognize that and we're proposing to replace those plants.
Well, they should be replaced in the area that they were,
Right.
the ones along the bank. I
Right.
think moving the ones along the foundation, but the two small areas that were actually right along the bank, those, the staff's going to say that, I would caution the board that those probably should stay. Other than that, I think I've covered it. Oh, there's a tree missing, Teresa.
What?
The tree was there back in April, and
Yeah,
now it's
so
not.
I saw that in the staff report. It's a dogwood that was in the corner. It was not part of the, and I was not aware that the current owners had removed that. However, it is a foundation planting. It was not part of the previously approved mitigation planting. It was very close to the house, and I have no answer because I just saw the pictures today. I'm not sure when that dogwood was removed. It was there the last time I was there, and I have plenty of photographs of it. It looks like they removed it and put some seating. It was right up against the house. It's a foundation planting. We'd be happy to replace a dogwood in an area not up against the foundation to mitigate. I don't have an answer for that. It was located in that south corner of the house. Yeah, and it's currently not there. It was a small ornamental dogwood, Kusa dogwood.
So the wall, how tall is the wall again?
It's only about 1.5 feet tall. It's really just
what is there a footing on it or something?
So it's really meant to be more of a seating wall and to sort of maintain and separate, almost think of it as acting similarly to, you know, the low split rail fence, to separate and clearly demarcate that everything on the other side of this wall is naturalized. It's not to be touched. It's not to be removed. It's not to be disturbed.
I don't know. But this is not the first project we've seen with these little like landscape seating walls right along the top of a coastal bank. Second or third plan we've seen, not yours, Mike or Teresa, but you know, I know the board had concerns with the last plan that they saw these small like you know, seating walls along the top of a bank, and the board, I don't believe, allowed that one. So
the other concern is obviously safety. It's not a large enough drop to require a railing. However, we recognize that it's a fairly narrow space, that it's meant to be seating, and we don't want the potential of anybody slipping off the edge, falling over the edge, landing in the mitigation planting. So even though it's a low wall and certainly someone can take a tumble over it, it's really just meant to enclose the space and demarcate the edge of the recreation area from the planting area.
well, if the mitigation that was previously approved was allowed to stay, they wouldn't be that close to the edge. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. We are going to have to wait for natural heritage's comment.
Okay. All right, Kevin, do you have anything to add? Kevin Newton?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Mike, I have two questions for you. One is in your narrative, you state that the patio reconfiguration, it is larger and Blue Flax has mitigated for it, but it does not move closer to the resource area. Is that accurate?
Yes.
That's what you were stating earlier, correct?
Yes, yes. And the reason I thought that was appropriate was when I read the section of the regs, talked about I can't find it right now, but I'll find it and explain what my rationale was before we're done. I don't want to interrupt.
No, I'm just clarifying that your point is simply that you're working with an existing patio, and while you're expanding it, you're not bringing it any closer to resources.
Yeah, when I read I found the section. I'm reading from the section, and it says, any expansion or addition of impervious surfaces, parentheses, e.g. expansion of a primary structure such as a house, addition, or addition to an accessory structure, cannot move closer than the present primary structure. Right. You know, structure to structure. I mean, we have a patio, and we're not moving closer than that patio is. You know, there's a little subtle difference of opinion on what that means. You know, it says e.g. expansion of the primary structure such as a house or an addition to an accessory structure. That was my only difference of opinion for diplomatic reasons with Jen. That's the only difference. in my interpretation of the reg. I thought a patio was not looked at the same way.
Right, and if this was a brand new patio, it would be a different argument than
Oh, absolutely.
expansion of an existing. So
Right.
just wanted that clarification. My other question is, and this probably is more for the building department, but I'm going to ask you anyway.
Mhm.
On your stairway and platform, how do you step off the stairway and get onto that platform?
How do you step off the stairway and get onto you don't, the lower platform would be probably waist, at your waist high. So you just kind of scoot up and scoot off. It's more a place to store the kayaks and drag them off, or to just sit on it. There's no steps. As you're walking next to it, you basically, as you walk down the steps, you'd be able to step onto it at one of the stairs, but if you keep walking next to it, you'd have to sort of sit on it and scoot your legs over if you wanted to sit on it. But it's mainly just to put the kayaks on and off.
To act as a shelf.
Basically, it's a shelf, yes.
Okay. Okay. Again, more curiosity than anything.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. All right. Kevin, we're going to start with you.
That should be easy. No questions at this time, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Mark?
Yes. I guess the issue of moving mitigation areas does have some questions associated with it. But to me, especially when a mitigation area was established quite a long time ago, and maybe it didn't actually succeed, refurbishing it or refurbishing a different area, to my mind, is just fine, as long as we don't deal with losses of area or losses of area getting away from the, say, the top of the coastal bank or the bank at the water itself. As long as we save a good location, I'm not so concerned about moving it. That's all.
Thank you. Pat?
I agree with Ian's interpretation of 1018-7E1. That's the provision that talks about an expansion or addition of a structure in Zone A cannot move closer to the resource area than the present primary structure. Now, we've talked about what is a primary structure and have said in the past, since I've been on the board for this short period and probably longer, I'm guessing, that a patio is not part of the primary structure. So for those instances when, would you look at this patio as an accessory structure? If that's so, the last sentence of subsection 1, I think, is what is applicable. And it says, accessory structures in Zone A located close to the resource in the primary structure may be modified, but the amount of impervious surface must not be increased. So that last sentence, I think, is the portion of that regulation that applies to this. And because they are increasing the impervious surface area, I think they'd need a variance. My 2 cents. And then my second question is about that platform. The exception allowing a 4-foot wide access staircase to the water resource makes the steps fine in my mind, but the removable platform is almost like adding a deck. It's an 8x8, and I'm not sure the regulations allow that in that location. My 2 cents.
All right.
Can I comment on that before?
Yes.
Otherwise, I'll just never remember. So we looked at the platform the same as being analogous to like a dock, and the maximum size of a dock is 100 square feet, even though we can't have a dock here because for a lot of reasons we can't have a dock here. That's what they originally wanted. So we tried to keep it below the 100 square feet, so it's 64 square feet. That was our only thinking on that. It's a place, there's no place to really, it's such a severe coastal bank, there's really no place to haul, or, there's no shoreline or any place to store like small recreational, kayaks and canoes. So that was the purpose of the platform. The sole purpose was to make it so, in the season you could leave them there, and in the off season you store them up in the upland. And on the, I'm never going to win a legal argument with Pat. I'm not going to try, but I don't know that the patio is I don't think the patio is an accessory structures. I mean, under our zoning, patios are not considered structures.
The zoning definition wouldn't be applicable though here. And because we have determined in the past that patio is extending from the house primary structure are not part of the primary structure, you have to look for another opportunity in the regulations to describe what you're expanding. And I think that last sentence addresses that. The commission will have to mull over this.
So it just comes down to whether the patio is an accessory structure or not, I suppose.
No.
The introductory language that you and Jen were talking about does not allow this, because if you're saying that patio is part of the primary structure, this is moving closer to the resource.
Right. I'm saying it's neither primary or an accessory structure. It's a separate category called as a patio.
Okay.
That's it.
Would it generally, I'm sorry, Teresa's break here, would it generally just be considered a landscape feature?
It's impervious surface, and what Pat is saying, for all resource areas listed in 10 FWR 1018-5A, accessory structures in Zone A located to the resource area, then the primary structure may be modified with the amount of impervious surface or pervious surface that does not support natural vegetation must not, in this area, not be increased. It's the impervious surface. I mean, we could write a list of regulation and say patios, brick walkways and everything. And, with all due respect, someone will come along and say, oh, well, I'm calling it this, and you don't have that listed in your regulations. We've seen it. So I'm saying it's impervious surface. I'm not labeling it as an accessory structure. But I'm definitely not calling it the primary structure. Sorry, Pat.
I don't know if this reg anticipated that. I mean, I helped write these with Betsy. I don't know that we really talked about this. So I think there's discretion.
I remember exactly this, and Pat's interpretation is exactly what was intended.
Okay.
Now, Pat would say to you, just because it might have been intended as one way, if that's not how somebody interprets the words that are there, but that's exactly what was intended. You can have impervious surface in the A zone, pergola or a patio or a pool, and you want to do something different. And you can, and say the rest is lawn. Well, you can do that, but you only have the amount of impervious surface with the existing, as Jen said, a whole list of things that might be there. So you can reconfigure what's there, but you can't add more.
As long as you don't go closer than the present primary structure, I guess. But I'm not going to win the argument, but I get your point.
All right, moving on.
The only, one more thing, Mr. Chairman, the only other thing I wanted to caution the board on is the grass patio. We did put something in the staff report that you should probably, if you allow that grass patio area, that you should probably put that it needs to remain as a grass area. Staff does have concerns that it's, again, enclosed in that little sitting wall area, which I'm sorry, Teresa, I'm sure it's lovely when it's designed, but like I said, we've been seeing more and more of these small sitting walls on top of right on top of the top of a coastal bank, and it's But anyway, you should probably, if you were to allow that to move forward, put that it has to remain a grass patio, because that's just one of those things where you can see, unfortunately, a patio increasing over time. So that whole little area within that wall is all the same. So just a caution to the board. I'm done, Mr. Chairman, sorry.
All right. Again, moving on. Peter, you're up.
Well, I think the project has a lot of value because it's going to get rid of a lot of invasive species. However, I believe Pat has the correct interpretation of no increase in the patio area. That's it.
All right. Steve?
Nothing to add to that. Thank you.
All right. Betsy?
Besides agreeing with Pat's interpretation, I also want to make a comment. I don't agree with her about the kayak rack, that we've allowed kayak racks kind of near the ocean, you know, on beaches, in dunes, etc. So given the geography of that section, I think it makes more sense to have a kayak rack than to have people struggling to pull a kayak up and down those stairs. I'm concerned anytime with removing prior established mitigation plannings, and especially mitigation plannings that are between the primary structure and the resources. And getting to Jen's last point, especially switching woody vegetation for lawn. And, but a plus for Teresa, I agree if there's already an impermeable surface, if you're replacing a patio and the edge of the patio, you want to put a little wall, that seems reasonable to me. You'd either need a wall or to put a little fence or something, but a little wall, you know, why not? And that's all. Thanks, Jamie.
All right. Courtney?
There's not much I can add to the discussion. Pat has said it pretty well. There may be creative ways that Teresa can deal with the patio question, but I think it's pretty clear that you can't expand. My thing is, my point would be, goes back to this platform, set of stairs and so on, and Mike noted that these would be removable when there was a hurricane or the winter or whenever. And that sounds great on paper. In the past, we've asked for some construction details that show how this is going to be removed. And, you know, is it feasible? Because I can't, and I'm 80 years old, I'd have a hard time taking an 8x8 platform up a steep bank when the hurricane was coming. So, you know, I know that's a practical thing, but I can also see how much damage could be caused if it's not designed properly. So I think we need something that shows that this is feasible, that it works, it's simple, it can be easily done so that it doesn't cause damage.
Methodology.
Methodology, design, something, both.
All right.
One more thing, Mr. Chairman, Mike or Teresa answer
Yep.
this, probably Mike. The area where your stairs, the top of your stairs are, is the area where Teresa's wall is. So is the wall, are they going to step over the wall and onto the stairs, or see what I'm talking about? It looks like the wall goes in front of where
There would
the
be a
stairs
break.
are.
There would be a break in the wall at the platform, basically, where it would be, you know, you'd walk off.
So, but
It's, yeah, at that point, it's just a few inches high. So the wall around the patio, the seating wall, was designed to be 20 inches. And then it's just lowering as you kind of head south. So at that point, it would just be that you'd be stepping up onto the stairway, onto the platform that leads down to the stairs would be at the level of the wall. It's just
Well, then why have it in that area anyway? Why don't just stop it?
Well, it does
With
provide
your
an opportunity to
patio.
create some more level lawn area in the existing lawn area to the south of the house. So it's more steeply sloping towards the top of the bank as you get down, and it does allow us to create a more level lawn area at the south so that it just allows that to be more usable lawn area for the property owners. It's the only lawn.
But you're not showing any grade changes.
It's at 20.1 there. And then we've got the top of the wall is at 20.8. So it is just a little bit higher there. And so the platform would come up to the top of that wall. I think we should provide a section of that so you can see what that looks like. I think that will answer that question.
That would be helpful because I'm not visualizing.
Yep, no, we can definitely.
I am and I'm not at the same time.
Mm-hmm. If I may, I do have one question for the commissioners as we think about going back and bringing back the information that we're hearing from you this evening to the property owners. And one question that I have is the mitigation planting that was previously approved in 2006 that's in the foundation planted. So it's up against the house foundation. Is that something that the commission would be open to relocating to another area in order to perhaps get some more grassy seating area as I just think about opportunities to redesign this? And I'm just asking the commission if that's—
Where would you move them to, Teresa?
To the northern portion of the property. It's really the only place that is available.
To the northern portion of the property, so you're talking along the, in back of the garage, Emma?
No, where we're showing the 314 square feet to be relocated.
So you're gonna, I don't understand.
No, so there's the portion of the mitigation, there's a portion of the previously approved mitigation planting that's right up against the house foundation.
No,
So
I get that, and we'll probably have to go on site.
Okay.
Because, I mean, just, as Mike says, you can look at it on a plan, but showing it on the plan doesn't actually do it justice in the field.
No, I agree. Yeah.
You know,
yep.
Saying it's like, you know, and I agree with you. I mean, when I first started and I saw plans with vegetation right up against the house, and then we were told, well, you don't have a regulation that says I can't do that. Well, that's smart, putting all the vegetation right up there. You know, it was just ridiculous. So I agree that, you know, it's not really doing much against the house, but again, where would you put it in a buffer? The reason it went right up into the house is because this property went through a house expansion, right, and it required mitigation, and the only place to put mitigation near the resource areas was to literally jam it between the top of that coastal bank and the house itself, which—
Well, there is actually an area within the 50-foot no disturbance zone A to the north of the house that's not currently planted, and it would provide a more contiguous buffer, but we can certainly look at that in the field. The area that we're showing in our plan is blue.
Yes.
So the area that we're showing in our plan in blue is within the 50-foot buffer to the top of Coastal Bank.
I understand that, but I thought you were that area was, so you're saying leave the mitigation you have that you were currently, or the area of mitigation that you were currently proposing to move over there, and move other mitigation over there instead, the ones closer to the house foundation?
No, the only whoops, sorry, I just kicked my computer out. The only planting we were proposing to remove to that area that's shaded in blue, that's the area where we were proposing to relocate.
Yes, no,
approved, yes. So we would be saying, well, if we had the opportunity to just relocate the planting that's directly up against the house to that area, is that something the commission would be interested in entertaining?
Okay, I see what you're saying. That would be up to the commission.
Okay. I'm just trying to think through as we, try and approach a redesign on this patio with no expansion of structure.
No, I understand. I think that the area of mitigation that's along the top of the coastal bank is more beneficial than the Bay Barrier that is like basically the foundation planting now is mostly gone, is in poor health because it's right up against the foundation.
Right, well, actually, of all of the previously planted mitigation planting, the plants
they're actually alive.
Foundation are the healthiest and happiest. It's the ones that are at the top of the bank that are actually no longer existing. So that's where we'd have to.
I wonder why.
Well, I don't know. I can't answer these questions at 9:46.
How long
you
would
guys
you
don't
need,
want to hear
guys?
me make up an excuse. I don't know.
How long will you need?
Well, I think since we're still waiting for the NHSP response as well, I wonder if it makes sense for us to give them at least 30 days to respond.
When did that?
The letter is dated.
Yeah, I got it right here.
Yeah. The letter's dated August 31st.
So they probably didn't get it until first week in September sometime.
That's what I'm thinking. So I think we would need a couple of weeks. And also too, we'd need a couple of weeks to work on the redesign of that patio area and to talk to the property owners about that.
Okay. And did Mike and Teresa, did you want to meet staff up there?
That would be helpful.
At some point to go over like things are and everything. Because we
I think that would.
All right. So Teresa or Mike, I don't know who has more heavy lifting on this one. I'm thinking it might be Teresa. You wanted 30 days. Again, that puts us at around the 14th. So do you want 3 weeks or 5 weeks?
Let's do 5.
Because we're not meeting on the 14th because there's a housing summit on our night. So
yeah, if we could do the 21st, I think that would give us the time that we need.
21st? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And in the meantime, you guys would get together on site?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Dan, are there any public comments or questions?
Not at this time.
All right. All right. So we're looking for a continuance till 10/21, is that correct?
No, there was not at this time. There's no chat.
No, I believe, yes, we're requesting its continuance to October 21st.
So moved.
Oh,
Gladfelter.
Thank you.
Second, Harris.
All right. We have a motion and a second to continue this hearing until 10/21, and in the interim, staff will get together with the applicants and try to iron some of this stuff out. With that, I'll call for the vote. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Mark? Pat?
Harris, aye.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
Steve?
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. This hearing is continued until 10/21. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Borselli. Thank you, Ms. Sprague.
I have the next hearing, so don't
Staying with us.
don't delete me.
I'm not going to delete you, Mike.
Okay.
Teresa, I'm going to delete you. No. All right, I'm going to Teresa removed herself. And Mike, you wanted me to promote up your client, correct?
Donna Skelly wanted to have an opportunity if there were questions, or she may want to make a comment or have her own questions. Yes.
Okay,
And-
so I'm
and there's
going to promote.
Can Can I announce this first?
Oh, sorry.
All right, next up on the continued hearings is Frank and Donna Skelly, 369 Edgewater Drive West, East Falmouth, Mass, for permission to raise, R-A-Z-E, an existing single-family dwelling and to construct a new single-family dwelling, to add a new Title V septic system, and to reconfigure the driveway. Now you can proceed.
Okay, I just promoted the Skellies up as panelists so they can either answer or ask a question of the commission. And again, Mr. Borselli is here to present the project.
Yes, is there another gentleman in the audience? Robert Amoran, the architect?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I didn't know who he was.
Mr. Chairman.
And Mr. Moran is now being promoted up as a panelist.
For the record, my name is Mike Borselli from Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant along with Bob Moran, the architect. If you recall, we made a presentation to do a raise and reconstruction of a home at this location in a velocity zone. We went through all of the plans and details of the project. There was some issues and concerns raised by you and staff, primarily centered around the enclosed space that we proposed under the building, since it was now going to be elevated on pilings. We tried to make a case that the new house is more resilient to hurricanes than the existing house, and that what the applicant was doing was significantly better for the environment and any potential impacts to the environment. Still, there were concerns about the area that was enclosed mainly. If you recall, we were proposing an innovative way where the garage door system would be used and they could be raised and lowered either remotely, automatically, or manually. But we still didn't convince you. So we had continued the hearing. We regrouped and we submitted a revised plan where we're only asking to enclose one section of the house. And if I could share my screen, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, please.
I'll show you my site plan. And I'll zoom in on the new house for your reference and recollection. The existing house is outlined in red, and there's also a retaining wall with a depressed lawn area, if you recall. So the new house is shown in this location. It's moved back from the wetland resources. This area would all be the walls, and any subsurface concrete would be removed, and this would be backfilled and shaped to be flush with all of the surrounding natural grade. Now, if you look at the detail of this plan a little closer, enclosed area is shown dashed. I apologize for the confusion with the two red lines, but the dashed red line, so we're only enclosing this portion of the new house. From here over is wide open. This is where the entryway is, and some areas of passive storage behind the foyer and entryway here. This is a patio that's outside the building, at grade. So those are the changes to the plans that we made. We're hoping that that's acceptable to you. We're here to answer any more specific questions you may have. And if Donna Skelly would like to comment, she's here, and I welcome her to do so. I'm happy. I will unshare my screen.
All right. Mike, does the Skellies want to offer anything or just be available to answer questions?
Defer to them.
Could we listen to what you guys have to say and then add anything if we need to, or would you like me to present what we would like now?
I just want to give you the opportunity to speak if ahead of time if you wanted to.
Oh, I can speak. So as you know, we're trying to upgrade the house. We are filling in that area. We're trying to make that a really nice piece of property to live in. It's a very modest house. We don't have a lot in that house. I believe it's under 2,900 square feet, which leaves us nowhere really to put any extra stuff. We do live on the water. We have windsurfers. We have paddle boards. We have life jackets. We have all the stuff that goes with living on the water. And we really need to put that somewhere. It's really kind of not worth it for us to build a house that we can't put the stuff and protect the stuff from not getting stolen. We've already had windsurfers stolen from our property that were outside. So we would like to be able to lock them up in some sort of area. We don't plan on building anything under there. It's really just to put the stuff we need to lock up.
Okay. Jen and or Kevin, do you want to start?
Mr. Chairman, I'll just have a few comments. Our comments are to keep the board consistent with recent decisions. You know, we do say that the area of enclosed space has to be reduced as much as possible. Currently, it's over 600 square feet of proposed enclosed space. That's well over what the board has allowed, and your past decision, your recent past decisions. And you know, we would like, the staff is saying that we would recommend that the board require that to be reduced even further. I think if you give me one moment, the last one you did in a velocity zone was 335 Shore Streets. And that enclosure was approximately well, it was just the mudroom and the interior stairs, so I can't have a scale with me. I can't scale it off, but it was much smaller than the 600. So usually the board will just that access way and a small area for storage. But again, this is over 600 square feet, and staff would you know, our recommendation is that it be reduced even further. If it's truly going to be for storage, it can be reduced further. That said, Mike, what is the underneath of the proposed house that is raised on pilings? What does that consist of? I know there was some, where are you, Mike?
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. I'm trying to find you in my Hollywood Squares here. I know that was a concern of some of the commissioners at the last hearing. Do you have what the underneath of the house on pilings is going to be?
Yeah, we're hopeful we can have a concrete slab. It's actually integral to the design of the piers. They're interlocking, and the structural engineer designed it in a way that it would be a solid concrete slab, similar to the floor of a garage. It's effectively like a garage floor. It's like having a garage that's open to the elements on all the sides. It's stable, easily maintained surface.
Okay, Mr. Moran, are you with us? Is that depicted on the architectural at all?
It is. I can share this. I can show you that if you want. If I could again share my screen, I have it.
Go ahead.
Yes, please.
So the architectural plan shows slab. This was all the overhead doors. They've been removed. There's an exterior stairway, and then the only like inside storage area is outside. There's an elevator because of the elevation of the house. So this is basically the only area they have under the current plan for storage, this area here. So although it's, you describe it as over 600, it's not all available for storage. There's an entryway and there's an elevator. So it's more like probably closer to, 550 square feet, which, seems reasonable for, a family to have a space for the things that Donna described.
Thanks, Mike. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Your regulations do say that other than open pilings, shear walls are prohibited in a velocity zone.
Does Mr. Newton have
I
anything
mean,
to
the
add?
board's always allowed for the staircases to be enclosed, mudrooms to be enclosed.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, I do not have any further comment. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Commission comments. Betsy.
So I have a question for Jen. Would Mr. and Mrs. Skelly be able to have a shed on this property?
Well, they have two sheds. Sorry to interrupt. There's two sheds that they're planning to keep.
One shed is going away.
Oh, one shed's going away. Okay.
It's kind of condemned.
One's in a state of disrepair and one's still in good shape.
Well, I mean, I think 550 feet is a lot for storage, but I also think that if they could have a shed for storage, then it may as well be located like right under the house. So, however you want to, I mean, that's how I feel. And I also don't have a problem with it being concrete, is because that's part of the whole structural integrity of the house. I mean, if it's not concrete, it's going to be dirt. And in any case, you're not going to have anything growing under there. That's all, Jamie. Thanks.
Okay. Courtney?
Kind of following on Betsy's thoughts about the shed and the storage. And I certainly empathize with the applicant's desire here. And I also understand why we want open pilings. What's interesting about the design that they have is that we have typically allowed applicants to enclose an entryway and set of stairs and an elevator. So that takes up X amount of space.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in this case, if I recall the design that Mike put up, it shows that the stairway, in fact, is on the outside of the structure. So, but that stairway takes up a fair amount of space. I don't have measurements on it. So, in a sense, in my mind, if I look at the amount of space that an elevator, an entryway, and an enclosed stairway takes, then there seems to me we could have some flexibility to allow a small area to be enclosed under the house, equivalent to a shed, maybe not 600 square feet, but certainly more than nothing. And with imaginative planning, it could hold a lot of stuff without taking up 600 feet. So I think there's in my mind, there's room to have a little bit of flexibility here.
All right.
I think it's
All right.
up to I think perhaps it's up to the applicant and perhaps staff to kind of put their heads together and come up with what's a reasonable amount of space that they need, sort of working off of how big is the shed that's going away, how much space is gained because they don't have the interior stairway, because that's on the outside. And, you know,
Courtney, the stairway is on the inside.
the stairway,
Isn't it?
I thought the stairway was outside the structure.
Mike, can you clarify that? Because
Right. Hold on a second.
I'm looking at your architecturals, and it appears to me that the stairway is enclosed in that space.
I think Bob should speak to that, the architect. He's in the audience. I'm not sure why he's not
Mr.
chiming in.
Moran, are you with us?
He's on the grid.
I'm with you right now.
There he is.
The stairway's enclosed, the elevator's enclosed, and we're all we want to do is get like you say, some space in there, and that 550 square feet was not accurate. It was more than about a little over 300 square feet would be if we enclose the area that we talked about that the plan showed. It'd be an extra 300 square feet beside that, which is not a huge amount to store stuff in, like a basement or a garage or something like that.
So, Mr. Moran, while we have you, can you explain what the 12-foot, the 14-foot, and the 10-foot doors are?
Those are garage doors, which would disappear the same as we talked about before. I've actually have two houses right now that are existing in Portsmouth, Rhode Island, that we have garage doors that do the exact same thing, and they all work fine. They work on a generator. They're smart openers. They're battery powered openers in case all things go. The doors open and up and down when they're supposed to.
So our debate whether the square footage is allowed. We've typically allowed 200 square feet, and we've had some flexibility with allowing for the stairway and elevator and to be all included.
Walk around, yeah.
So my question, Mike, would be also for the owners, I guess, is, and I'm just throwing this out there, is would they be willing to get rid of the sheds in lieu of this part of this enclosure?
One of the sheds is actually going away. The other shed actually has our tractor. We have a tractor that takes up the whole entire shed for the lawn. So we really don't use that for anything other than a garage for this tractor right now. We can't really put anything else in it.
So are you willing to move the tractor into this new storage area?
I don't think with that amount of space, we're gonna have enough space to put windsurfers in.
Lawn furniture. And
Yeah, we're gonna have lawn furniture on the back deck that's gonna have to come in the winter time also, or in a storm, so it's not flowing all the way across the yard.
Okay. All right. Mr. O'Brien.
It seems to me that once again, in an effort to improve one factor, we are increasing the problem. This crusade started because the walls that people were proposing could be blown away when there was a tidal wave, and that would provide damage. The system they're proposing would make that problem disappear because it would just go up and wouldn't be in the way. The problem is that in the first example and in this example, the area is full of stuff that will get carried along in a tidal wave.
Right.
It makes no difference. Okay. I think the people who we have imposed this on in Surf Drive basically use it to put their cars in. And if they don't get their car out when there's a hurricane, they too will be blown along. I think as far as this proposal is concerned, it makes no difference. And if they can provide some security by having this magic thing that goes up and down like a garage door, fine. Because in the end, it makes no difference if, in fact, we're talking about damage done by a hurricane. In both cases, the space would be wide open and everything that they've listed that they'd like to store there will go along in the tidal wave.
Just for clarification, Kevin, the last 4 projects you permitted in a velocity zone did not have garages.
Did not have what?
Garages.
They had spaces where
they could park under the open parkings, just like the proposal is for this one.
Yes.
Not enclosed garages.
True.
Can I ask a question? So
Yes.
Seacoast Shores is an area that is being built up right now. And there are houses going up. There is a house in Seacoast that just went up last summer that has an enclosed basement and an enclosed garage with a cement foundation. So you're telling me on one side that we can't have it, but yet just a year ago you allowed it to happen. So I'm a little confused.
Well, it depends on what property you're talking about, ma'am, and whether or not that was in the velocity zone or not.
It wasn't a velocity zone. It was a I think it was
410.
410.
Seacoast Boulevard.
Seacoast Boulevard,
Yeah.
and it is it's no higher than our house. It actually looks lower. I have a picture. If my son was here, I could share it with you. I could probably show you it on my phone, but it is completely enclosed with a garage. And when I asked the builder how he did it, he said, you guys never questioned it. So you really set a precedent there for a full basement, and we're only asking for a small amount of space to put the stuff that we've bought.
First of all, I don't think a full basement would be allowed by building code in a velocity zone.
Well, it's a fully enclosed space. It's a velocity zone house with breakaway panels.
Yep.
I do have a picture of it on my phone if you'd like me to show it to you. Just a moment. And I don't mean to cause problems by this, but it's been done, and it's just very confusing to me why.
That's
So here's the house. I don't know if you can see it.
No.
Yeah.
Jen, for the record, this
I can see
property
it.
that they're referencing requested compliance in March, and it was not compliant for a number of reasons, but I can look into that once they come back for compliance again.
At least the garage doors won't get blown away like the walls would.
All right, we're going to move forward. Mark? You're muted. No.
Now can you?
Yes, thank you.
This commission has been, some members have been rather anxious about storm-borne refuse, stuff that gets taken away from a house in a storm and maybe distributed on a marsh or something. I think, however, I think Betsy really had a good point that you could put a shed in and fill it full of stuff, Why can't you put that stuff under your house? FEMA's not really concerned about what's under the house, other than the fact that if that structure that's coming from the habitable part of the house down to the ground, when it's damaged in a storm, if it tears away part of the house above it, that's their concern. They don't concern about where those garage doors go particularly. That's primarily, I guess, this commission's concern. I'm not concerned about that. I think you could store it. We've got many houses down on Surf Drive that have sheds and piles of paraphernalia, like this applicant is talking about, the surfboards and lawn chairs and whatever else hiding in the, not hiding, stored in the shed or behind the shed. And we certainly tolerate that. I don't see any reason why we can't tolerate a larger area under the house for some secure storage of property like this. That's all.
I'd like to say something, Mr. Chairman. The house that went up that they're referring to, when it was permitted, Mr. Borselli, you believe you permitted it, it was in August of 2014, and it was before the velocity zones changed. So the house, when that house was permitted at 410 Seacoast Shores, only a small, the deck and the covered portion, only a small portion of that back was in the Falmouth V zone. The majority of the house was in the A zone. The velocity zone changed. There was an amendment to it. And then, but it had already been permitted. So the statement that it was in a velocity zone was a bit incorrect. When it was permitted, the house was not considered to be in the V zone. And I have the plan that I can share with you. If
we're not debating that project tonight.
Thank you.
Yes. All right, we're moving on. Pat?
I just want a little clarification.
Not me.
I see in the plan an existing shed, and I assume it was constructed when it was allowed. Jen, could a shed be constructed in the velocity zone under today's regulations?
it says no shear walls or, structures. So
kind of a rhetorical question.
The board has been sympathetic and allowed small enclosures like sheds. The board has been sympathetic to allow people to store some materials in.
Right.
Okay. So I'm not, but I'm not, that is going to be completely up to this board.
So my other question is, no enclosed spaces on that level. Has anybody ever put in like a cage for storing valuable equipment so you have security? It's like a dog kennel, for lack of a better description, but some kind of a fenced-in caged area under the house. It's not a solid enclosed surface, and you'd get your security. Would that be allowed?
I would like
Up to the board.
some of the furniture and stuff from the weather. The weather is going to go right through a cage.
Just trying to come up with accommodations.
Yeah.
I have no further comments. Thanks.
Peter?
Mike, what's the approximate square footage of the shed that they are going to abandon?
Is it, Donna, is it the one closest to the street?
Yes.
It's 8 by 12, so it's 96 square feet.
So what I'm thinking, that's about 100 square feet. And if we added it to the normal typical allowance, that would be pretty reasonable.
Which would be a total of how much?
It's a setup.
No, I'm trying to get around. I heard a 300 number. We've got.
Well, if you heard a 300 number, if you add 100 to that, would be 400 for all the space in the basement, including the elevator and the stairs. And that's what my thinking is. No further comments.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I say something to follow up on Mr.
Chairman.
Commissioner
Sure.
Walsh's dropping your head? I know, but I'm just going to say this real quick, and I don't know if people can hear me because you guys are going in and out, but 117 Surf Drive, you allowed an enclosed space that included the elevator, the staircase, the little mudroom, and probably storage, but to be able to walk around the whole point of that structure. And that enclosed space was 400 square feet. So Mike, I'm saying if you can keep it in and around that, that's going to be a little bit more palatable to this board.
Mm-hmm. Well, I defer to the owner on that if it's acceptable, or maybe some input from the architect, because I don't have a sense.
And just for your clients to understand, again, the house that you showed us, ma'am, when that was permitted the first time, that was not in a velocity zone. That velocity zone changed. FEMA changed that designation in December of 2014.
I understand what you're saying there completely with the velocity zones. What I don't understand with what you're calling the velocity zone is Surf Drive. I know all of us went through Hurricane Bob, probably every one of us here. I can say that in Hurricane Bob, the one problem with the house I had, because my father owned it at the time, there were 2 waves that came up and went over that wall that is dug out, which flooded the house. That was in the perfect storm with a full moon, and it came up and went over that one little wall, which filled that whole wall with water. Almost every single house on Seacoast was flooded. Almost every house in our neighborhood was flooded. Probably so my cousin's house is 2 houses down from 410 Seacoast. It was up to almost his house, and he has one heck of a lawn. So if you're gonna tell me that in a hurricane that my stuff is gonna float away, every house on Seacoast is gonna float away. I'm trying to better the property that we're building. We're bringing it to FEMA regulations. We're doing what we're supposed to do. We're filling in that hole so it doesn't happen again. But with no storage to protect the stuff that we've bought, we're not wealthy people. We've saved for a long time to do this, but it's not worth it for us to do it if we can't protect the stuff that we've bought. It's simple. So we're not Surf Drive. Surf Drive is open ocean. We saw houses over on top of a salt marsh from Surf Drive. That didn't happen in Seacoast. We had some flooding, yes, but that was it. Seacoast is not an open ocean to flood. So to use the term velocity zone, and I get it, that's how FEMA regulates it, it's not the same. It really isn't.
Thank you. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm with Peter and Betsy. Although I think the space requested is reasonable. I really don't have any problems with this plan. I'd be willing to accept this plan as it is.
Okay. Thank you. Jen, are there any public comments or questions?
No, Mr. Chairman.
I do have a question.
Of course.
And the question is, now that we've talked about these sheds, are they legally permitted sheds?
I can't answer that. I don't, they've been there for a very long time. You know, I'm sure they've been there, 20 plus years. Am I right on that?
Yeah, they were born before we bought the property.
So I
Well,
can't answer that.
So I'm just going to ask that question, and I'm also going to say, I understand, I'm sympathetic with the Skellies, and I understand what your concerns are, but I just want to say to you, seeing what happened in Hurricane Bob and seeing what happened at Surf Drive and seeing what happened or didn't happen in your area, that's no idea of what could happen in a future hurricane. I mean, velocity zones, hurricanes are dependent on where they hit and, you know, what side of the eye that you're on and what the strength of the hurricane is. So Hurricane Bob does give you an idea of, you know, kind of a gut feeling of what happened in your neighborhood. But really, believe me, I've been through 2 Category 4 hurricanes, and nothing you think might happen happens. You can't really predict what's going to happen.
And that we all learned that just with Hurricane Laura a couple of weeks ago, but that went in for miles and miles. In a Hurricane 4, Category 4 hurricane, we're going to lose half the Cape. We all know that.
All right. Does anybody have anything to add? Courtney?
Yeah, I mean, I, like Betsy, I'm very sympathetic to their needs. And this is a real juggling act because, as Betsy pointed out, in a storm like this, one of the reasons why we're reluctant to entertain garage doors that go up and down automatically and things like that is that people store stuff. And when those doors go up, there isn't an automatic cleaner upper that gets rid of all the stuff before the hurricane comes. And that now becomes missiles that become a problem. And that's why we insist on no barriers. The house is on the stilts. On the other hand, somebody needs to have storage. And I think it's a tough balancing act. But not only do we have to be sympathetic to the needs of individual applicants, we have to also be very mindful of the precedents that we set when we allow things that are maybe in gray areas in our regulations. And it's a real balancing act. And we all need to be mindful of that. I do think the suggestion of something on the order of 400 feet, which allows for the elevator and the stairway structure, a little bit of an entryway, and some skillfully designed storage is something that's a reasonable compromise in this situation. And that's what I would hope the applicant and the architect can get creative and come up with a design that works for the applicant and also accommodates the concerns that we have as in attempting to regulate this thing fairly. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. I'd like to reiterate that I agree with what Courtney said, that you know, we have to be careful of setting a precedent. However, we always say that we try to look at each project individually. So at any rate, what are we thinking?
Can I speak?
Yes.
Would you accept 500 square feet for both, for all those things? For the entrance, the elevator, and the storage areas?
I don't know that it's a negotiation at this point. I mean, it's
Yeah.
something.
But that's not hard to do.
Sorry, I'm speaking. Whatever's proposed is what we would vote on. Does that make sense?
Well, it makes sense to accept that. I mean, we're asking for more than the 500 square feet. Could you
Could you approve it with a condition of a lesser than what's proposed and submission of a revised architectural plan to the lesser amount that you deliberate over? The 500 square feet would be what we would hope, or would you rather us continue and revise the plan to that area and come back?
Where did 500 come from?
Well, Mr. Moran just mentioned that. You were talking 400, and he's, as an architect, thinking about storage in the elevators and the entryway and the mudroom and seeing a lot of that eaten up by those elements, and then thinking 500 square feet could work with all of those things within it. And we could revise the plan and bring it back to show you that.
Can I ask a question? How, as the plan is now drawn, how much area is taken up by the stairway system, please? I need an answer there. How many square feet?
I got to defer to Mr. Moran on that.
And then I would like Mr. Moran to tell me how much room is taken up by the elevator, and you can include any walls and that sort of thing. And then I want to know how much room currently the plan has for, I would assume when you enter the house, there's a landing area before you go up the stairs. So I'd want to know how much room that takes.
Can I get that?
You can come up with.
Can I get that to you tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important that we know that, so that when we're starting to talk about how much square footage is necessary for, in addition to that, for your storage, that becomes more possible. So I need that as your starting point. Your elevator, your landing area, your stairway. Then I would say we go beyond that and say, well, you're not taking down a shed that's 100 square feet, so that will give you an extra 100 square feet to.
Then I suggest we continue the hearing and we understand what you're looking for. We could refine the plan one more time and come back with that, and hopefully that will satisfy you.
I'm afraid we've got a little bit of a problem here in that some people are rather enthusiastic about reducing the square foot. Other people are happy with keeping it as it is. And how do we get past, why force the Mr. Porcelli to redesign this plan and the homeowners to take that without considering what has actually been offered to us? Because we've got a mixture of feelings of what this commission believes is appropriate.
May I speak, Mr. Chair?
Please.
I'll make it quick. I think Courtney's request is that we see exactly how much square feet is involved with those other facilities. And then we can, as a board, look at it very specifically and say, well, you can have a total of 400 square feet, but you can pick and choose if you want it for storage or if you want it for an entryway or you want it for an elevator. That makes sense. I think that's what you're suggesting, Courtney.
Well, I want to know, first of all, I'm willing to allow an area for storage. And as a starting point, I'm using 100 square feet, as Peter suggested, because that's the area of the shed that's being taken down. So if you start with the footprint of the stairs and the footprint of the elevator, and this includes the framing and everything, and also the area of landing. So when you open the door to go into this enclosed space, you're not going to stumble right into the stairs. It's probably a 3 or 4 foot landing before you start up the stairs. I don't have the plan in front of me, so I can't determine it. So you take that, that's what we would normally permit. And then you add 100 square feet for the shed, and that's where I would use as a starting point. Now, the architect can get creative because there's storage area that can be put under the stairs. If I recall the stairs, they go up to a landing and then go back up. So this area under there, I mean, not much headroom, but certainly you can put a lot of surfboards and things like that under there. So there's ways to get creative with this. And that's why Bob Moran is an architect. That's his job, to figure out how to maximize the use of space.
Okay, but we can't design this for them, so
No,
We need a continuance.
Yes.
Why do we need a continuance?
Well, you're saying you're gonna vote for it.
I'll make a motion to approve and put it under advisement.
Well, and then you want them to have a denial? I'm not willing to close this hearing now.
all right, so here's the question, Mike. I'm going to pose it to you. Would you like to see the hearing closed and us consider what you have proposed as of tonight? Or, and I'm certainly not encouraging you one way or the other. The other thing is to continue it and dwell on your end, if you will, about what you would want the final proposal to be. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yep, yep.
I want to be clear what I think procedurally we need to do.
Yep. Understood. This is the time, if we were at town hall, we'd scurry out in the hallway and talk. Is there a function on here that we can do that?
Exactly.
Table it. If we close the
One second,
hearing.
Mike. IT, Thomas,
Yes.
my hidden IT guy back, the man behind the curtain. Is there a way we could move Mr. Burselli and the Skellys back into the attendee list? Then Mike, you'll have to contact them, I think, a different way by the phone or something, and not on Zoom. And you can talk, and then and then just text me when you want to come back, and then we can move you back if that's agreeable.
Yeah, we only need 5 minutes or less.
Okay, one of our next hearings isn't going to take that long. So, Mr. Chairman, would that be okay with?
I think that's fine. We're going to have to vote for tabling it.
Yeah, I make a motion to table.
All right, my whole system is now frozen. Does anybody hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes.
You're not moving though. We can hear you. Oh, now you did. Yes, you're shaking your head.
I second the motion, O'Brien.
Okay, so our motion and second is to table this hearing so that the applicants can have a discussion, and they'll come back after the next hearing, assuming it's only going to be a short one.
Yep.
Is that acceptable, Mike?
Yes.
Okay. Betsy?
Gladfelder, aye.
Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Mark?
Gurney, aye.
Pat?
Harris, aye.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
Steve?
Pat and I.
All right, the hearing is tabled. Good luck, Mike.
Thank you.
See you in a few.
Thanks.
Thomas, if you can hear me, because I'm having a real internet problem, could you move Mr. Burselli and the Skellys back into the attendee list so they can contact each other? Thank you. I'm afraid if I do it, I'll remove them by accident.
Thomas. Okay, so that hearing is tabled
Thank
for a
you,
minute.
Thomas.
Next up is Dana Brown, 17 White Pine Lane, East Falmouth, Mass, for permission to raise RAZE, an existing single-family dwelling, and to construct a new single-family dwelling and new Title V septic system. This hearing
Mr.
was
Chairman,
continued.
I am Matt Crichton up as a panelist if you're still awake. Raul, I hope you're awake too. You're next. Mr. Crichton. Thomas, I need you to move Bob Moran back into attendee list too. Thank you, Thomas.
Hi, everyone. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Matt.
Beautiful. Matt Creighton from BSC Group, representing Ms. Dana Brown for the hearing tonight. The last hearing that we had, we discussed raise and replace of the existing single-family home. And there wasn't really a whole lot of comments as far as the house itself was concerned, or the driveway or the septic. Really what it came down to was the planting palette and planting plan. And we have been able to work with staff on that as requested by the commission to add the additional plants. The last hearing, it was asked that we add 58, a total of 58 woody shrubs and a tree to the existing planting plan, leaving the herbaceous layer that we had proposed as well to kind of be interplanted there from a habitat standpoint. We've done that and submitted it to Jen with the revised plan. We've actually proposed 60 woody shrubs and a tree. We added some different species of woody shrubs, obviously, to get the numbers up and just to have the variety from a habitat standpoint. We added the red osier dogwood, Virginia rose, beech plum, shadbush, the red chokeberry, and we were proposing a yellow birch for the tree. I can share my screen if you'd like to take a quick peek here. Like I say, we didn't really change a whole lot when it comes to the building or anything of that nature. So we still have the existing planting area back here, the shed to be removed and that area to be replanted. The last hearing, I believe somebody had mentioned trying to cut some of the ivy vines as well, which we can certainly do that. And we've updated our planting list, and you can see that we still have the Indian grass and the cardinal flower and some of those other herbaceous layers there. So I won't take up too much of your time. I know Mike is probably going to be waiting to get back on, and it's been a long night, but I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Matthew. You can stop. Thank you. Jen, you want to start?
The only comment I have is they have done with this board and the staff has requested. So
Excellent.
the concern was the mitigation planting palette. That was it.
Okay. Kevin, do you have anything to add?
No, sir. Thank you.
All right. All right, we're going to go for commission comments. Betsy?
Thanks, Matthew. It looks great, and I'm glad you kept the cardinal flower.
Courtney?
No questions.
How about your cat?
No, she's happy. She wants her dinner. We got
Yeah, don't we all? Kevin?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Mark?
I have no questions.
All right. Pat?
No questions.
Peter?
No questions.
Steve?
No questions.
Jen, are there any public comments or questions?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
for second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to close the hearing. I'm going to go for the vote. Betsy?
Gladfelder, aye.
Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Mark?
Great, aye.
Pat?
Harris, aye.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
Russ, yeah. Old habits die hard. Steve?
Pat and I.
All right, it is unanimous. The hearing is closed. Thank you, Mr. Crichton.
Thank you all. Have a great night, guys.
Hi, Matt.
All right.
Mark, do you have another device working as well?
I do. I've got a telephone because the video
Okay.
on my laptop is not functioning.
Nope, that's fine. I didn't want to do something.
Funny picture, probably.
I'm
Jen, did you
having
hear from Mike?
Hmm?
Did you hear from Mike?
from him yet.
Okay, then we're going to go to the
Text
next.
me when he was ready. So want to just move on to Raoul's and then we'll go?
Yes. So
Okay.
next up is James P. and Janice E. Healy, 295 Edgewater Drive West, East Falmouth, Mass, for permission to raise, RAZE, an existing single-family dwelling and to construct a new single-family dwelling with a garage, a reconfigured driveway, decks with stairs, walkways, front porch entry, spa area, bulkhead, AC units, rinse station, dry wells, mitigation plantings with the associated grading, utilities, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I've promoted Raul up to a panelist. He's still awake. And hi, Raul. And just to go over the revisions to his plan.
Okay, before you do that, can I have the quorum, please?
So it's everybody, and it just depends on who's here to vote
Okay.
as to which of the alternates will be voting.
Okay, that is Mark and Peter.
And Pat. All three of them will be eligible to vote. It just depends on who's promoted up when we vote.
Oh, you're right. Okay. Raul, you're up, sir.
We can't hear you.
Somebody wake him up.
He's awake.
He's
got
awake. He's smiling.
A lovely smile, but just no voice.
Raul, can't hear you.
I think he might have to use Mark's trick.
Something.
Nope. Raul, can you call in? Call in. What is the number to call? I'm working on it, Raul. I'm working on it.
Hey, Raul, the easiest way is on the bottom of your screen. If you press the up arrow next to your microphone key, there should be a switch to phone audio option. It'll give you all the options there.
The great and powerful Oz, better known as Thomas.
It's the little things, you know?
He does exist. We know that.
We've seen him.
We've seen him. With and without long hair.
Are we in recess or what?
No, Raul's trying.
We table that and go to order conditions, or is that jumping too far
Mr.
ahead?
Borselli's ready to ask for a continuance.
Okay. So
Raul, we're going to table you and you try to call in and then we'll promote Mike back up real quick.
I make a motion to table Raul and on table Mike.
Second.
All right. So we have to do these separate. So we're going to table 295. Betsy,
Gladfelder, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Rooney, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
Is unanimous. 295 is tabled. We have a motion and a second to untable 369. Betsy,
Gladfelder, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Rooney, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
All right. 369 is reopened.
Thank you,
Mike, you're
Mr.
up.
Chairman. We made a decision to request a continuance to kind of regroup and sort of hone in on that storage number.
Okay.
We got information we think we can use to come up with a usable solution. So if the 30th is available, I will take it. If not, I'll take the 7th of October. September 30th or October 7th.
Jen,
Here it is. September 30th. September 30th should be fine.
We can get you things a week prior. We'll work on it. We'll work on it quickly. Mr. Moran said he can work on it quickly.
So you'll get it to us by next week?
Yes. No,
Okay,
you know,
that's
I
fine.
want the 30th and I'll submit it to you 1 week prior to the 30th.
Which is next week.
That's next week.
Yeah, by September 23rd, I'll give you plans for a hearing.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
So I make a motion to continue this 369 Edgewater West until September 30th.
Walsh, second.
thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second to continue this till September 30th. Betsy,
Gladfelder, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Rooney, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, second, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. This hearing is continued until September 30th. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you very much.
Bortelli, Mr. and
Appreciate
Mrs.
your
Kelly.
time. Thank you.
Hi, Mike.
Thank you. Good night.
All right. Is Raul up and running?
Raul does
Can you-
not look like he's. Oh,
Yes.
All right. So we need to untable.
Oh, make a motion to untable 295 Edgewater Drive West.
Bird, second.
Second.
Okay. All right. Betsy,
Gladfelder, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Rooney, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
All right. Raul, you're up.
All right, good evening. For the record, Raul Isali from Cape Ananas Engineering. I apologize for the technical difficulties. It's really the first time the microphone hasn't been working. But yes, we continued this
I've been
hearing
having
a couple of weeks
problems
ago.
all night, Raul.
Yeah. A couple of weeks ago, we continued the hearing to coordinate the revisions to the site plan. The two revisions, if I can share my screen, had to do the main revision having to do with this portion of the proposed house to be on piles, which is the portion that was, this little corner right here was within the 25-foot Falmouth B zone. So the entire box out in the back, which has a diagonal hatch to it and a leader with a text that calls out portion of house supported on piles. That is one of the revisions we did. Second revision to coordinate from last time was taking about 600 square feet of this area of mitigation plantings up here, proposing it on the south side. So those are the main revisions, the only revisions actually done to the plans. And if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer.
Thank you, Raul. Jen and or Kevin? Jen, you with us?
Hello. Oh, yes. 1 second, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any questions.
Okay. Kevin?
No additional questions, Mr. Chairman.
All right. All right. Mark, I'll start with you.
I have no comments or questions.
All right, Pat,
No comments or questions.
Peter,
No questions.
Steve,
No question.
Betsy.
Thanks, Raul. It's very clear what you're doing in that corner of the house.
Courtney.
No questions.
All right. I'll second Betsy's comment, Raul. Thank you for the revisions. Kevin?
O'Brien, no questions.
All right.
Move to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Gladfelter, second.
Hey, we have a motion and a second to close the hearing. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Mark?
Gurney, aye.
Pat?
Emerson,
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
Regretfully, I skipped a step. Jen, are there any public comments or questions?
No.
Lucky for me. All right, it is unanimous. The hearing is closed. Thank you, Raul. Sorry you had to wait so long.
Thank you. Good night.
Night, Raul.
All right, next one's been 42 Deer Run has been continued. Wings Pond has been continued. All right, last item, second to last item. Boat order conditions, Robert Richards, 45 Little Neck Bars Road, Falmouth, Mass.
And I have a quorum for you.
Excellent. Slowly.
Slowly. So it's Courtney, Kevin, Betsy, Jamie, Steve, Peter, and Mark. Pat's not on it. Pat can't vote on this.
Correct. Sorry, Pat.
Poor Pat.
You should see, did you see Peter's grin when I said that?
All right.
So this is the project where they want to amend the order of conditions to put in the bluestone pavers under, it was originally concrete, or these little sections of decking. The board, they came back with a design, bluestone. The board wanted to see where exactly the bluestone was. I think there was some confusion and because some of you thought it was just a bluestone kind of path to the back, and they have proposed bluestone underneath the entire structure.
Anything else? Anybody have any comments? I think they addressed everything we talked about.
I'll make a motion to accept as discussed.
Walsh, second.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second to accept standard conditions and kind of simple, really. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Mark?
Gurney, aye.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. The order of conditions has been issued. And one more.
Just
What do you think?
out of curiosity, Mr. Chairman, you promoted Peter and Mark up tonight, or?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I had it wrong. I'm sorry. I had it wrong on my notes. Thank you.
Yep. All right, everybody want to hang out? It's only 11.
I make a motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman. Steve Patton.
Sure.
Well, I thought he said we had something else. I'll second it.
Yeah, I thought there was an other business, not that I'm anxious to prolong this.
No, we had two things. We had order conditions and adjourn.
Oh.
Oh.
Well, let's
okay.
take the vote.
Sheesh. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Third eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Gurney, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Good
Thank you,
night,
Thomas.
guys.